Pagod ka na ba galing sa trabaho? At gutom na sa maghabong pagtatrabaho? Pero wala kang pagkain sa bahay? Narito na ang sagot mga katropa. Ang super manok lechon. Napapawi sa inyong gutom at siguradong mapapa-analyze ka dahil sa tender juicy na jam mo pa. At siguradong malinis at bagong katay buhat sa farm. Kaya super masalasa at pangmasa pa. Ano pa hinihintay niyo mga katropa? Takbo na sa Super Manok Panteño Siniluan at bumili na. Baka maabusan ka, katropa.
Nais mo bang guminhawa ang iyong pakiramdam? Kung ikaw ay may sipon, ubo, lagnat at iba pang nararamdaman, lalo na ang sakit ng katawan, narito na ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil. Ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil ay nakatutulong na ibsan ang iyong nararamdaman sa pamamagitan ng pagpahid sa apektadong parte ng katawan, gaya ng noo, balikat, tuhod at kung anuman ang masakit na parte ng iyong katawan. Panoorin ang mga testimonials ng gumamit ng Yasmag.
Yan po, ginagamit niya. Siya po ay isa sa aking mga testimony.
Ako, si Destino Francisco, ay gumagamit ng Yasmag na siyang nakapagpalakad sa akin. Kaya kayo, mga kaibigan ko at kakilala, ay pinapayuhan kong gumamit ng product na ito.
Isa sa ating testimony, ikukwento po niya sa inyo yung kanyang result nung siya ay 1 linggo nang nilalagnat at giniginaw ng hihina.
Hi, ako po si Rina Liliantos, 29 years old, taga Sariaya, Quezon po. Nangyari po sa akin, itong mga nakaraang araw po ay hindi ko po maintindihan yung pakiramdam ko, gawa pong ang sakit po sobra ng likod ko, nilalagnat ako, tapos po ay hindi lang po 1 linggo ang nararamdaman ko. Simula po nung July 30 hanggang itong araw, hanggang nung mga nakaraang araw. Yun lang po, nawala lang po ng dahil sa magnesium.
Paano ginawa mo?
Ang ginawa lang po sa akin ay ipinahinaplas po sa akin likod kung saang parte ng katawan ang masakit. Tapos po ay hinilot lang po ako. At hanggang po pagpawisan ako sa pagkahilot na may magnesium. Ayun lang po, sunod-sunod po ang paglagay kung saan banda ang may masakit. At yun nga po, ilang araw lang sa paggamit yun ng magnesium, ako mismo, sarili ko, ramdam ko ang pagbabago sa aking katawan. Dahil po simula nga po nung July 30 hanggang itong itong mga nakaraang araw lang, hindi ako halos makatayo dahil sa sobrang sakit ng aking likod.
Ako po si Leslie. First time ko po mag-try nitong Yasmag Magnesium Therapy. Ang una ko pong naramdaman ay ang bango niya lang hapin, nakaka-relax ng katawan, and then yung sakit na iniinda ko sa puso, yung sakit-sakit, wala naman ako sakit sa puso, pero yung mga kirot-kirot nawala niya, instant nawala, na tagal ko nang iniinda. And then hindi siya malagkit ipahid.
Mga millennials, marunong na ba kayong magluto ng mga masasarap at swak sa budget na mga pagkain? Abay, huwag puro lang kayo aksi at ML at puro pagkakalikot lang ng cellphone. Dapat marunong ka rin sa gawain bahay at tulungan ang inyong mga mamsi. Kaya tara na, samahan natin ang kusinera ng bagong milenyo, si Ate J. At tuturuan tayong magluto ng mga masasarap na ulam natin sa ating mga hapagkainan at sok pa sa budget. Ika nga, a delicious food. Binaigting, binalakas, ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita. 'Di ba? May mga tao na hindi nila alam kung paano gawin ang kanilang buhay. Kaya, kung ikaw ay may sipon, ubo, lagnat at iba pang nararamdaman, lalo na ang sakit ng katawan, narito na ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil. Ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil ay nakatutulong na ibsan ang iyong nararamdaman sa pamamagitan ng pagpahid sa apektadong parte ng katawan, gaya ng noo, balikat, tuhod at kung anuman ang masakit na parte ng iyong katawan. Panoorin ang mga testimonials ng gumamit ng Yasmag.
Yan po, ginagamit niya. Siya po ay isa sa aking mga testimony.
Presenting Pinalakas, ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo.
Hanap mo ba ay Unwind Ventures? Tara nang mamangha sa mga tanawin. Ano man ang iyong travel goals? Dadalhin namin kayo sa Unwind Ventures at saya. Dito lang sa Wow Biyahe. Kaya wow, di ba?
Abangan dito lang sa Millennial Online TV. Ikaw ba'y nag-iisa? Nalulungkot dahil iniwan at ipinagpalit, niloko ng iyong minamahal. Kung ngayon, i-type sa inyong mga cellphone, Facebook o YouTube man ang Millennial Online TV. Dahil nasa Millennial Online TV na ang online haralista ng bagong milenyo, si Randel Villados.
Naninigas ang aking katawan kapag umikot ng plaka.
At haharanahin kayo ni Randel ng iba't ibang awitin para maibsan ang inyong inip at kalungkutan kahit nasaan man kayo.
Hanggang sa tumanda. Come on! Kung tayo'y matanda na, sana'y di tayo magbago.
At pwede rin kayong makiduet kay Randel tuwing Sabado ng hapon. Tutok na! Tawag na mga milenyo!
Araw-araw ikaw ang gusto kong kasama. Buhay ko'y kumpleto na tuwing nandito ka sa tabi ko o aking giliw.
Barangay, pangunahing unit ng pamahalang lokal kung saan dito pinag-uusapan ang bawat sigalon ng mga residente ng bawat barangay. Dito rin pinag-uusapan ng mga piling hanggang na opisyal na barangay ang mga proyekto para sa kanilang barangay. Kumustahin natin ang panunungkulan ni Kapitan dito sa Dalo Barangay sa Millennial Online TV Worldwide, ang katropa ng bawat barangay.
Ating tinatapos ang ating pagpupulong. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo at tapos na po ang ating session. Enjoy na po tayo.
Now,
Talakayin, revisahin, opinyon, halawakin, aksyonan. Kasama si ROCEL ang inyong katropa. Dito lang sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita. Magandang hapon, aba ay nako, medyo hinapo na ako. Talagang ganon. Oras sa udyat, alas 5:25 po ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. At syempre po, sa inyo na ang programang Tropa. Siyempre ako pa rin ang inyong magiging kasama. Naku, kakwentuhan, kajaming, mamaya may mga itutunghay tayo sa inyo. No? Meron tayong reports no? ng ating reporter na si GHAZI at yung pong ginawang operasyon ng Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. No? Diyan sa may parting Makati at meron pong drug din. Mamaya lang po yan, no? Mga kaibigan, itutunghay natin sa inyo. At syempre, alamin din natin sa DOST PAGASA po ang report ng ating panahon. Ano ba ang lagay? Meron bang bagyo? Meron bang LPA no, namataan sa ating PAR o PAR o Philippine Area of Responsibility? At syempre, bakuna o saping bakuna, abay marami hong natatakot ngayon ng mga kababayan natin na magpa-booster shot. Hindi ko alam dahil syempre may mga naglabasa na naman sa social media at may mga nagsasabi rin na ito'y totoo at reality na ayon sa kanila ay nagpa-booster, abay namatay daw. Ngayon, paano natin makukumbinse Pangulong Digong, Tatay Digong, yung mga kababayan natin na magpa-booster shot pa? Samantalang meron ng naranasan na gano'n na after magpa-booster shot, abay, namatay. Ngayon, although lahat naman ng mga kababayan natin sa ngayon, sabihin natin naka-second dose na ang karamihan, booster shot na lang ang kulang, pero nag-aalala ngayon at nagkakaroon ng agam-agam, natatakot, nangangamba. Baka salip na sila kasing lakas ng kalabaw at pag sila nasaksakan na ng booster shot, ay baka maging lupaypay naman daw sila. At tuluyan ng mamayapa at syempre, ang kalalabasan, kwento na lang sila. Okay, so mga kaibigan, ako po ngayon ay araw ng Martes, isa na po ng buwan ng Pebrero. Kita nyo, bilis ha. Abay, February 1 na. Abay, malapit na po. 13 days to go. Abay, Valentine's Day na. Ay, kayo ba meron ng mga kabalentina? Lalo na yung ating mga millennials dyan. Abay, kaysa kay pupunta, mukhang simula ngayong araw nga pala, mga kaibigan, hanggang 15 ng Pebrero, ay ilalagay na ang bansa sa Alert Level 2. Ha? Ibig sabihin, ano lang hindi naman lahat ang alert level 2 ay yung pong NCR, Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, pero yung ibang lugar pa hindi ho kasali. Nabubulol ako. Yun ang ating natin, at hindi na raw yata i-implement din yung no vaccine, no ride policy. Siyempre, masyado nga namang kawawa yung ating mga kababayan. Kung limbawang nakasakay na sa sasakyan, pabababain pa, abay sasabihin, wala ka pang bakuna. Paano kung papasok sa trabaho? Paano kung halimbawang may pupuntang importante? Di hindi na. Ayun, at bukod dyan, wala natin kung ano pa ang magiging kaganapan. At syempre ngayon, ang issue, yung nagbabangayan, yung si Commissioner Guanzon, na talaga namang hindi daw karapat-dapat at dapat lang idiskwalipika itong si Bongbong Marcos. Dahil sinasabi niya, dahil daw hindi nagbayad ng kanyang tax ng buwis. Abay, ayon lang sa akin on my own concept, mga kaibigan, sa sarili kong kuro-kuro, hindi dapat ako mismo, myself, ang magbabayad ng aking buwis. At yun nga, sinasabi ko mga kaibigan na, halimbawa, private company, siyempre kinakaltasan ako niya ng tax, etc. So, opisina ang dapat mag-asikaso at magbayad ng aking buwis, hindi ako mismo. Paano ko maasikaso yun? Nagtatrabaho nga ako. Kaya nga meron tayong tinatawag ng mga accountant, mga secretary. Yan po ang trabaho nila na ayusin yung mga binabawas na tax, SSS, pag-ibig o whatsoever. Hindi ho mismong yung tao. So, kayo din sa public office, yung mga gobyerno, for example, nasa Congress ka, nasa Senate ka, nasa BIR ka, nasa LGU ka, ang mag-aasikaso po niyan ay yung inyong personnel. Dahil sila po ang nagkakaltas sa inyong sahod ng mga inyong tax, ng inyong mga SSS. Kaya sila po ang dapat umayos yan at sila ang dapat mag-submit o magbayad sa BIR. Ewan ko kung ano opinion nyo, yun ang sa akin. So, dapat yun, ang merong kasalanan, yung pinasukang government office, di ba? Hindi yung mismong tao. Ako, wari ba? Kinakaltasan ako ng tax ng opisina. Ako ba? Ako sisisihin nyo ng BIR, ba't di ako nakabayad? Yung opisina po sisihin nyo, ang balikan nyo, wag ako. Dahil sila po ang nagkakaltas eh. So, sa makatuwid, kinaltas sa akin, nasa kanila. So, dapat binabayad nila. Ewan ko, kung tama ako, mali kayo. Ganun. O kaya, tama kayo, mali ako. Ikaw ba, yung alimbawang iba natin mga kababayan, paano, kinakaltasan kayo, tapos hindi naman kayo pinabinayaran, di ba? Di ba binabalikan nyo yung kumpanya nyo? Ba't kinakaltasan nyo kung hindi nyo ako binayaran ng SS? Di ba? So, yun. So, doon po, nangyayari, ang kinakasuhan po ng SSS ay yung pong kumpanya kung saan pumapasok ang isang individual. Hindi mismong tao, di ba, ang kakaltasan o ang kakasuhan ng SSS. Ay, nako, ikaw ba, Joel Cabusora Regindin, yung ating katropa sa lalawigan ng Ilocos Sur, ikaw ba'y kinakaltasan ng buwis, ng tax ng inyong opisina, at ikaw ba'y kinakaltasan din ng SSS? Abay, alamin mo yan kung ikaw ay kinakaltasan at kung nahuhulugan at kung nababayaran, baka mamaya magaya ka kay Bongbong Marcos. Okay mga kaibigan, abay oras natin, alas 5:32 po ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. Abay nanonood pa sa atin yung aking kabats, no? Yung aking classmate, si Joel Lapus. Nasaan kaya ito? Nasa pilahan, nasa terminal, o nagkukuyakoy lang sa bahay nila? Nasaan ka ba? Baka mamaya nagkukuyakoy ka lang sa bahay nyo, paring Joel Jojo. Si Jojo Lapus po, ito yung kabats ko po ng high school. Naalala ko nung araw po. Naubo tuloy ako. Excuse me po. Nagaya tuloy ako kay paring Mike Enriquez. Natural lang yun. Natural naman na nasasamid ka. Minsan nga may kilala ako, nagbo-broadcast, nabahing, lumitaw po yung sipon eh. Talagang ganon, tao lang, di ba? Okay, magandang hapon sa iyo, Joel Lapus. Kung nasaan ka mang lupalop, bahala ka sa buhay mo. At si Ma'am Paula Pinera, abay nanonood, magandang hapon po, magandang hapon. At si Mang Jose, ako yung aking pangkin, buwat doon sa Siniluan, Laguna. Abay, napakasarap ng manok mo raw, pangkin. Ang daming nakinabang, ang daming nakatikim. Very daw tender, juicy. At yung iyong chicken oil, abay, maganda raw ipanluto. Kaya yung iyong chicken oil ay magiging official na gagamiting cooking oil ng programa ng millennial na kusinera ng bagong milenyo, siyempre natatampukan at pabibidahan ni Ate J. Abangan niyo yan dahil itong linggo to lalabas na po ang kanyang mga pilot episode at yung pangalawang episode niya niluluto. Ay masarap po. Creamy binagoongan at chicharo with, ano ba yun? Basta chicharo, shrimp, ayun. With shrimp. Baka hindi nyo alam yung shrimp. In Tagalog, alamang. Sabihin nun, shrimp small, alamang. Pero hipon ho yun. Ayan Mang Jose maraming humanga doon sa yung super manok lechon. Ang problema, sa dami ng nakinabang, ang natikman ko lang kakapirasong pakpak. Kaya parang medyo hindi ko na-feel. Buti pa yung mga nakakain na-feel. Ayan, sabi po ng ating katropang LMT, si Miss Jackie Lagpawadahar, yap, masarap ang super manok dito yot, sagad sa buto. Ang sarap, plus malambot pa. Ayan nakita mo yung mga comments kaya i-improve nyo pa, Mang Jose i-improve nyo pa yan. At yung sinasabi ko sa yung sauce, medyo gumawa kayo ng kakaibang sauce. Yung bang sauce na kapag ka natikman at nagamit yung sauce, yung bang kung pangit gagandang lalaki. Ganun. Ngayon, kung halimbawa hindi tumitigas, dapat tumigas. Yung mukha lang. Okay mga kaibigan, ako alas 5:35, napakabilis ng oras at binabati rin natin si Bambo Garcia po ng Grupong Puwersa ng Dulong Bronze dyan sa Barangay Tugatog, Malabon City. At syempre yung katropa natin si Rogelio Dagdag Esteban, buhat naman po sa Barangay Bibiklat sa Kuyapo, Nueva Ecija. Nasaan kaya to? Baka mamaya nag-go-golf na to At si Ma'am Erin Ubaldo, nako yung kanyang hipag, ayan, nanonood din, nasa Bibiklat din po sa Kuyapo. At syempre po si Ma'am Delsky Bernadas po ng North Caloocan. Condolence sa Ma'am Delsky, nakita ko yung post nyo na parang may namatayan. Sino may namatay, Ma'am Delsky? Condolence condolence. At mamaya rin mga kaibigan, ako itutungay natin sa inyo yung naging birthday celebration ni Barangay Kagawad, Sani Dadad Pineda. Abay, napakaganda po. Talaga naman si Lolo Dadad, siyempre may mga apo na kompletos recados. So, kompletos recados yung kanyang mga apo, anak, doon sa kanyang birthday. Abay, talaga naman pong pinaghandaan talaga ng kanyang mga junakis. Abay, isipin mo, nagkaroon siya ng pantalpakan, si Barangay Kagawad. Isipin mo ng birthday niyang yun, 0. 0 si Kagawad after ng birthday. Naku, napakaraming pantalpakan. Hindi ko lang alam kung may natira pa. Siyempre, lumipas tayo ilang araw alam mo, talpakan, isang upuan mo lang yan. Pag nalibang ka, ubos. Ubos ang pinagputahan. Pero sabi ni Kagawad daw, may natira pa. Kung gusto ko raw hiramin ko muna. Yan si Kagawad. Jack of all trade. Master of none. Yan. Ika nga, bolob. Wala ko sinasabing sira labas. Okay, so yung mga kaibigan, buti pa, wag na natin pagtagalin. Alamin natin sa DOST PAGASA ang lagay ng panahon, kung ano ba, meron ba tayong bagyo? Meron ba tayong low pressure area na nasa labas pa ng PAR o hindi natin alam, no? Kaya alamin natin. So mga kaibigan, alamin natin sa DOST PAGASA.
Magandang umaga, ngayon ay unang araw ng Pebrero taong 2022 at narito ang update ukol sa magiging lagay ng panahon sa susunod na 24 oras. Sa kasalukuyan ay northeast monsoon ang umiiral dito sa bahagi ng Luzon kung saan asahan natin yung bahagyang malamig na panahon and also yung mga pag-ulan lalong-lalo na po yan sa silangang bahagi ng Luzon. Samantala, wala po tayong minomonitor din na sama ng panahon na maaaring makaapekto dito sa ating bansa. Para sa magiging lagay ng panahon ngayong araw, asahan nga po natin yung mga pag-ulan lalong-lalo na yan sa silangang bahagi ng Luzon, partikular na po yan sa Cagayan Valley, Aurora at Quezon, kung saan magiging maulap po yung kalangitan na may mga kasamang mahihinang pag-ulan, at dito rin po sa Bicol Region, sa bahagi ng Bicol Region, kung saan asahan po natin yung mas mataas po na tsansa ng mga pag-ulan, kaya pinapaalalahanan po natin yung mga kababayan po natin dyan na mag-ingat at maging alerto sa mga posible pong pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa. Samantala, dito naman po sa Metro Manila, maging sa nalalabing bahagi po ng Luzon, ay asahan po natin yung maaliwalas po na panahon at maliban na lamang po yan sa mga tsansa po ng mga pulo-pulong mahihinang pag-ulan o ng mga pag-ambon. Ang agot po ng temperatura sa Lawag ay maaaring maglaro mula 20 to 30 degrees Celsius. Sa Baguio ay 13 to 22 degrees Celsius. Sa Tuguegarao ay mula 21 to 28 degrees Celsius. Sa Metro Manila, ang temperatura ay maaaring maglaro mula 23 to 30 degrees Celsius. Sa Tagaytay ay mula 22 to 28 degrees Celsius. Sa Legazpi ay 24 to 30 degrees Celsius at sa Puerto Princesa maging sa Kalayaan Islands, ang temperatura ay maaaring maglaro mula 24 to 31 degrees Celsius. At para naman po sa bahagi ng Visayas at Mindanao, Dito po sa mga lalawigan ng Northern Samar, Eastern Samar at Samar, ay asahan po natin yung maulap na kalangitan na may mga pag-ulan. Kaya muli po, pinapaalalahanan natin yung mga kababayan po natin dyan na mag-ingat at maging alerto sa mga posible pong pagbaha at pagguho ng lupa, lalong-lalo na po yan sa mga event na mga katamtaman at kung minsan ay mga malalakas na pag-ulan. At para naman po sa nalalabing bahagi ng Visayas, maging sa buong bahagi po ng Mindanao, ay magiging bahagyang maulap hanggang maulap po yung kalangitan at asahan po natin yung mga tsansa ng pulo-pulong pag-ulan, pagkulog at pagkidlat. Ang agot po ng temperatura sa Iloilo, Cebu at Tacloban ay maaaring maglaro mula 25 to 31 degrees Celsius. Sa Zamboanga ay mula 24 to 34 degrees Celsius. Sa Davao ay mula 25 to 33 degrees Celsius. At sa Cagayan de Oro, ang temperatura ay maaaring maglaro mula 24 to 31 degrees Celsius. At para naman po sa lagay ng dagat baybayin ng ating bansa, sa kasalukuyan po ay meron pa rin po tayo nakataas na gale warning sa mga dagat baybayin po yan ng Batanes, sa Cagayan kasama na po dyan ang Babuyan Islands, sa Ilocos Norte, Ilocos Sur, sa Isabela, Aurora, sa Northern Quezon kasama na po dyan ang Northern at Eastern Coast ng Polillo Islands, partikular na po yan dyan po sa General Nakar, maging sa Panukulan, sa North and Northeast Coast po ng Bordeos, sa North and East Coast ng Patnanungan at sa Humalig, sa Camarines Norte, sa Northern Coast ng Camarines Sur, maging sa Northern Coast ng Catanduanes, kung saan hindi nga po muna natin pinapayagang pumalaot yung mga kababayan po nating mangingisda, pati na rin yung may mga maliliit na sasakyang pandagat. At para naman po sa 3-day outlook ng mga key cities ng ating bansa, dito po sa Metro Manila bukas ay asahan pa rin po natin yung bahagyang malamig po na panahon at yung mga tsansa din po ng pulo-pulong mahihinang pag-ulan o mga pag-ambon. And by Thursday at Friday naman po, asahan natin yung paghina po ng northeast monsoon ng amihan. At dito sa Metro Manila ay generally fair weather po tayo, maliban na lamang po yan sa mga tsansa po ng pulo-pulong pag-ulan, pagkulog at pagkidlat, lalong-lalo na po yan sa hapon at sa gabi. Ang agwat po ng temperatura ay maaaring maglaro mula 23.
Ayon, maraming salamat po sa inyong pag-uulat, DOST PAGASA. At nagatid po sa atin yan sa oras na alas 5:53 po ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. Yan po ay kanilang forecast, kanina pong madaling araw. At yun, wala na akong kasunod. No? So mga bulletin na lang. Kaya yan lang ang ating inilabas na report buhat sa PAGASA. Okay mga kaibigan, ako magandang hapon ulit. Yung ating mga viewers, sila Mang Jose. Mang Jose, sabi ni Mang Jose, magandang hapon, Kamilenyo. Abay, maganda ka pa sa hapon. Diyan ba sa inyo umuulan, umuulambon o ambon lang? Kasi pag sinabing umulan, malakas. Kapag sinabing umuulambon, medyo ambon na malakas. Kapag ambon, ambon lang. Alam niyo na yun, ha? Pagka ulambon, malakas na ambon. Kapag kaambon, ambon lang talaga. Pero pag ulan, ulan na yun. Yun ang ibig sabihin po, no? Ano yung ulambon? May nagtanong kasi sa akin dati, umuulambon lang. Kasi umuulan ba dyan? Hindi, ulambon lang. Ano yun? Pinaliwanag ko ngayon, meron siyang bagong kaalaman. Okay, sa mga kaibigan, at sunod na natin dyan, huwag na natin patagalin yung pong report, no, ng ating kasama si GHAZI Sarip tungkol po to sa ganawang accomplishment ng Las Piñas PNP, no, kung saan ay nakadali sila ng isang tao na mayroong shabu yata at mayroong pang baril, no? So alamin natin sa report ni GHAZI Sarip. GHAZI, pasok.
Millennial Online TV News Update.
Arestado ang sospek na kinilalang si Jomar Boho Ilagrosa matapos magsagawa ng checkpoint operation sina Police Corporal Nestor Buenavista at Police Corporal Washington Dabo sa Marcos Alvarez, Barangay Talon 5, Las Piñas City. noong ika-30 ng Enero. Naaresto ang nasabing sospek nila Police Lieutenant Robert Codiamat sa ilalim ng pangangasiwa ni Talon Substation Commander Police Major Leo Glenti Calabio at Police Colonel Jaime Osit Santos dahil sa kasong paglabag sa RA 9165 at RA 10591 o mas kilala sa Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 at Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act. Samantala, nakumpiska naman ang ilang mga ebidensya ng drugs sa mga sospek. Dagdag pa rito, ang mga sospek ay dinala na sa Las Piñas Drug Enforcement Unit matapos ang physical at medical examination nito sa Las Piñas District Hospital. GHAZI Sarip para sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Millennial Online TV News Update. Ayon, maraming salamat sa iyong pag-uulat, GHAZI Sarip. Kita niyo naman mag-ulat yung ating reporter, Tikas. Tanungin niyo si GHAZI kung sino ang mentor. Wala akong sinasabi. Sabi ko lang, tanungin niyo si GHAZI kung sino ang mentor, di ba? Mahirap, baka sabihin niyo, nagbubuhat ng sariling bangko Kaya, siya ang tanungin niyo na. Para mas maganda, siya na ho makasagot sa inyo. Tikas lang. Natutuwa lang ako kay GHAZI dahil magaling na siya mag-report ngayon. Hindi katulad ho nung una, na not exactly lousy, pero ika nga kulang sa diin. Kulang na kulang. Kung napapansin nyo mga kaibigan, medyo spoken in dollar tayo minsan. Kasi may pinaghahandaan tayo dahil bukas may darating ho dito Hindi ko malaman kung ito'y Vietcom, hindi ko malaman kung ito'y American citizen, Australiano o kung ano. Kaya pinaghahandaan ko. Minsan kasi mahirap mag-nosebleed wala talagang ganon. Well, I can communicate but not well dahil hindi ko naman napapractice ang aking English. Pero siguro, totong time na to, baka papracticein ko na little by little ang aking English na itinatago ko sa aking baol. Talagang ganon. Siyempre, nasa bansang Pilipinas tayo. Alam nga namang, kausapin ko lang, bibili lang ako sa tinda, mag-English pa ako. Alam nga namang, may bisita ako, tanungin ko na, "Excuse me, sir, what drinks from the kitchen would you like to have?" Hindi naman po pwedeng ganon. Baka naman sabihin, ano naman ito, ini-English pa, tatanong lang kung ano gusto ko inumin hindi minsan kasi, sometimes, siguro, sa mga piging, sa mga handaan ng mga dugong bughaw, dyan baka po pwede, mag-i-English ako siyempre. Dahil siyempre, pag pumunta ako dyan, magsusot ako ng traje de boda, magsusot ako ng tuxedo. So, kailangan, pagka may suot kang tuxedo, kailangan, you're very fluent in English. Pwede naman Taglish, pero, siyempre, makakaharap mo doon, either foreigner, either spoken in dollar talaga. So, kinakailangan, sasagot ka rin na spoken in dollar. Ngayon, kung di mo na iintindihan, di mo alam, sabihin mo lang, what? What? What-wating mo mukha mo. Ganun lang mga kaibigan. Okay alas 5:48 na. Maraming salamat ulit, GHAZI Sarip. At hindi lang po yan mga kaibigan, meron din pong report, ang inyong lingkod, tungkol din po sa ginawang operasyon ng Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency sa isa pong hotel sa Makati, kung saan napakalaking droga hong nahuli. Pakinggan po natin mga kaibigan, nandito po report. Millennial Online TV News Update. Hindi nakaligtas sa mga operatiba ng Special Enforcement Service o SES ng Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency o PAGASA ang 39 anyos na lalaki matapos isagawa ang drug buy-bust operation sa loob ng isang hotel sa lungsod ng Makati. Base sa ulat ni PDEA 1A5 Irvin John Coderis o IC ng SES kay PDEA Director General Wilkins M. Villanueva, nakuha sa operasyon nitong Enero 30 ngayong taon, alas 3 ng hapon sa May Inn Hotel sa Kalayaan Avenue, Barangay Guadalupe Nuevo, lungsod ng Makati. Sa kinilalang si Marion Balinas, 39 anyos, ng Pateros Street, Valenzuela, Makati City.
ang 500 gramo ng shabu na may street value na halagang 3.4 million pesos.
Opportunity na itong taong nga po ito na si Mr. Marion Balinas Idi Guzman ng ating confidential informant, and then yung nga po nagkaroon po ng ating mga tropa na magkaroon ng transaksyon. Bibili nga po ng 1 kilo na methamphetamine hydrochloride. Nagkataon naman po na nagkatuluyan sila sa kanilang transaction at nangyari na nga po itong bypass operation natin dito sa Mining Hotel, Kalayaan natin yung barangay Guadalupe, Nuevo, Makati City. Ibang target area po ito, hindi pa natin alam kasi magkakandak pa tayo ng investigation with regards to his intentions. As far as we know, ito lang po ngayon yung ating makukuhang information as of now.
At bukod pa dito ang mga bundle ng budel money gamit sa ginawang buy-bust operation, 1 pocket knife at 2 identification cards. At paalala naman ng PIDEA sa mga patuloy pa na gumagawa ng illegal na transaksyon hinggil sa droga na itigil na nila at mamuhay ng maayos para sa kanilang pamilya.
Inuulit ko, katulad nga po ng sinabi ng ating Director General, tumigil na kayo dahil sigurado ko, sinabi ko na po dati, sigurado ako na isumbong ka na.
Ang suspect ngayon ay naharap sa kasong paglabag sa Republic Act 9165 o Comprehensive Dangerous Drug Act of 2002 at nakapit na sa jail facility ng PIDEA National Headquarters sa QC. ROCEL Lopez para sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita. Millennial Online TV.
Ayan po mga kaibigan ng report, no? Ito, kita nyo naman hindi tumitigil po ang PIDEA at siyempre yung ibang ating law enforcement agency sa pagsugpo dyan sa illegal na droga. So talagang wala tayong magagawa sa hirap ng buhay. Yung ating mga kababayan napipilitan pong gumawa ng masama, ng illegal. Actually, nung ako po'y nasa TV5, meron po kaming operation na pinuntahan ng PIDEA doon somewhere in Bulacan na talagang yung pong mga bata, teenager actually, sabihin natin binata at dalaga na o mga maglilive-in. Pero meron ho silang behind, ika nga Chinese, no? Inamin nila na Chinese at nakakulong daw po sa New Bilibid prisons. Sabi nila yon. Alam nyo, may inupahan silang bahay doon. Nakita po namin talaga ng aming 2 mata na doon po nagluluto ng shabu. At ang totoo po, nakita namin na talagang yung shabu po, kaluluto lang at pinapala. Napakagaling po. Isipin nyo, bata, marunong nang gumawa ng shabu. Ibig sabihin po, naturuan, na-trained, no? Fully trained talaga dahil mahusay eh. Talaga ganun pala ho ang shabu kapag kaluluto lang, medyo manilaw-nilaw pa. At okay mga kaibigan, alas 5:53 na po ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. At isang-isa na lang, no, bago natin itunghay yung ginawa pong birthday celebration ni Kagawad Sani Dadad Pineda. Muli po, yung pong report ng ating kasama si GHAZI Sarip Pusaan po, ay kung di ako nagkakamali, kung ito ho yata ay sa Region 5, no, istorya, o kung saan, no. So alamin natin muli sa pagbabalik ni GHAZI Sarip. GHAZI, pasok.
Millennial Online TV News Update.
Arestado ang sospek na kinilalang si Jomar Boho Ilagrosa matapos magsagawa ng checkpoint operation sina Police Corporal Nestor Buenavista at Police Corporal Washington Dabo sa Marcos Alvarez, Barangay Talon 5, Las Piñas City noong ika-30 ng Enero. Naaresto ang nasabing sospek nila Police Lieutenant Robert Codiamat sa ilalim ng pangangasiwa ni Talon Substation Commander Police Major Leo Glenti Calabio at Police Colonel Jaime Osit Santos dahil sa kasong paglabag sa RA 9165 at RA 10591 o mas kilala sa Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 at Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act. Samantala, nakumpiska naman ang ilang mga ebidensya ng drugs sa mga sospek. Dagdag pa rito, ang mga sospek ay dinala na sa Las Piñas Drug Enforcement Unit matapos ang physical at medical examination nito sa Las Piñas District Hospital. GHAZI Sarip para sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Millennial Online TV News Update.
Binuwag ang isang drug den ng mga ahente ng Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Region 3 at PNP kasunod ng buy-bust operation na nagresulta sa pagkakaaresto sa 5 drug suspect na kinilalang sina Nomer Rivera E. Perico, Ervino Torres E. Samson, Jeffrey Nicdao E. Lozada, Brian Kate Gundayo at Kagiran Jore E. De Garcia. Ang mga naarestong suspect ay mga kapwa residente ng Mawaki Resettlement Barangay Sapang, Biabas, Mabalacat City, Pampanga. Nasamsam naman sa nasabing buy-bust operation noong ika-26 ng Enero ang 5 pirasong heat-sealed transparent plastic sachet na naglalaman ng shabu na may 15 grams at may tinayang street value na 102,000. Sari-saring mga gamit sa droga at ang buy-bust money. Samantala, ang mga suspect na naaresto ay nahaharap sa kasong paglabag sa Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002. GHAZI Sarip para sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Millennial Online.
Ayun, maraming salamat sa iyong pag-uulat, GHAZI Sarip. Aba, sabi ni Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda, yung ating idol na simpatikong Kagawad ng Tugatog, abay, good day at thanks sa video. Ay, huwag kang kukurap, Kagawad, at panoorin mo. Isusunod na natin yung iyong birthday celebration. Ha? At makita mo kung gaano kang katikas. Natatawa tuloy ko siya nung napanood ko to eh. Abay, pinasasandok yung pera, biglang binalibag yung sandok at dinakot lahat yung pera. Wala akong sinasabing mukha kang pera, ha? Sinabi ko lang natawa ko siya nung napanood ko. Okay, so mga kaibigan, tunghayan natin yung naging selebrasyon ni Barangay Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda sa kanyang kaarawan. Ito pong nakarang araw lang. At yun nga, sinelebrate niya yan at kapiling niya ang kanyang pamilya, buong pamilya, apo, anak, manugang, no? At balae, kasama ba? Hindi, wala yung balae. Siyempre, yung ilang kanilang ampon, no? Yung kanyang ampon na si Ipe at si Badoy, no? At ako naman sumaglit, nagkataon, may celebration pala. Sa mga kaibigan, panoorin natin, yung mga millennials dyan, yung mga Kiwanyans, yung mga taga-Tugatog, panoorin nyo po ito na birthday celebration po ni Barangay Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda. Panoorin po natin.
Yan po mga katropa ay si Barangay Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda na nagdaos ng kanyang 52 taong kaarawan, no? Kaya 52 taong kapanganakan kahapon, Enero at 30, no? At yun, at nandyan kumpleto ang kanyang mga apo, no? Siyempre hindi po pwedeng mawala yung kanyang mga apo. Yan, yung makikita nyo sa screen yung mga cellphone, yan po ang kanyang mga apo, no? Mula sa panganay, yun, hanggang sa maliban na lang doon sa bunso dahil wala pang asawa yung kanilang bunso ni Madam Estela Pineda. So ayan, at sila nagsalo-salo na simple na yung buong pamilya lang ang magkakasama. Ayan, yung anak, yan yung mga anak ni Kagawad, no? At yun, ang isa na lang walang asawa, yung si Shane, yung bunso ng babae. Ayan, at lingid din sa kalaman ni Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda na actually di niya inasahan na siya may handa, ganyan ganito, pero sinurpresa siya ng kanyang pamilya, no? Siyempre nga naman si Dada dyan, no? So ayan, at pati mga manugang kasama dyan sa picture taking. At yun, extra pa tayo dyan, siyempre medyo sumagli tayo sa kanya, pumunta tayo, yun, siyempre nakasama na tayo sa picture taking. At tapos yan ay
Ayan, meron kanyang sorpresa. Ayan, sinurpresa siya. Alam niyo yung gusto niya, yung pera na niregalo. Patunghayan po natin.
ganda to. Halo.
Ang galing mo yung ano po. Yan, oo, kasi sayang isang buwan lang doon. Bakit na yan ha? Bakit na?
Galing ah!
Ayos nyo kasi takip. Makakiyang kaya yata.
Dami na yan.
Isa na lang.
Magiging ako ang Jollibee eh. Wala to eh.
Ayos, ano mga kaibigan, nakita niyo yung celebration ni Kagawad Dan, Sanidad at Pineda, na napakasaya. Isipin mo, pinasasandok yung pera, dinakot lahat. Wala naman kami sinasabi Kagawad na mukha kang pera. Sinabi lang namin, siguro ko, baka nahihirapan ka na magsasandok, napapagod ka na, tsaka dinaklot mo na lang. Total, ganun din naman, di ba? Okay, muli Kagawad, happy birthday at many more birthdays to come and many more talpakan to come. Ha, kita mo ha. Sigurado maraming pantalpak na naman si Kagawad. Naubos na ba Kagawad? Abe, pagtabi mo ako, tihiramin ko. Ha? Ayan. Sabi po ni Miss Jackie Lagpao Adahar, pinahirapan pa, pwede pala dakutin lahat. Nga Kaya sinasabi ko ba't pinahirapan nyo pa si Dadad Pwede naman daklutin na lang at kaya abot nyo na lang Hindi, sabi naman ng mga anak, ng mga Junakis, para naman may thrill, may konting kasiyahan naman. Kailangan paghirapan daw muna ni Kagawad. Hindi basta isisilid na lang sa bulsa, kailangan pahirapan naman ng konti. Pero at end, ganun din naman Nasa bulsa niya rin lahat at ibinigay ng kanyang Junakis na si Sarah. Akala ko nga nung una, papalaagaw ni Sarah, nakaabang na ako dahil papalaagaw daw Aba, biglang kinuha ni Dadad, ibinulsa na, wala na. Pero nagbalato naman si Kagawad sa mga apo, tig-20. Pati nga si Ipe, binigyan ng 20. Ayaw pa ni Ipe, nagre-reklamo. Sabi, akin na, kung ayaw mo, kukunin ko, akin na yan. Di, siyempre, kinuha na ni Ipe. Okay mga kaibigan, alas 6 na po ng gabi, Philippine Standard Time. Abay, gabi na, At yun, sabi ni Kagawad, nag-thumbs up. Ayan, oo. At nanonood din sa atin si Ate Luningning Pahayag ng Barangay Bayan-Bayanan dyan sa Malabon. Good PM din sa hindi. Good evening na, Ate Luningning, dahil gabi na tayo, happy watching. Ayan, si Ate Luningning po yan, asawa po ng ating mayapang na walang kumpare na si kumparing Sep Pahayag. Okay, so mga kaibigan, ayan, nakita nyo, natunghayan nyo, saya, no? Sana all, lahat ganon. Yung bang pag magbebeli, magsasandukan ng pera, ganda, no? Kung meron perang pagsasandukan mo, yung talaga sandamakmak, no? Sarap sandukin siguro nun. Okay, so mga kaibigan, wag na nating patagalin at itunghay naman natin yung pong ginawang Pandesal Forum, no? Diyan po sa may Kamuning Bakery, no? Na siyempre po yan ay pinangunahan pa rin ni Sir Wilson Flores, no? Siya pong naging moderator sa nasabing forum. At ang mga panelist po ay sina Dr. Guido David, Octa Research Team Fellow, University of the Philippines Professor. At ang pinag-usapan po rito ay yung pandemic forecast, no? Para sa Tiger Year ngayong buwan ng Pebrero. Umpisa ngayon, Year of the Tiger po, Tiger Year. Kaya ano ba ang magiging lagay, ano yung forecast nila, yung mga hula, tama ba yung hula, di ba? Kung anong hula nila ngayong Year of the Tiger, dito sa pandemic natin. Okay, so mga kaibigan, wag na natin pagtagalin, tunghay natin yung ginawang Pandesal Forum dyan po sa Quezon City. Pwede rin kayo magbigay ng opinion kung ano, pero sabi nila, after these elections, wala na raw itong pandemic. Kaya lang daw may pandemic ngayon. Sabi nila, noon pa, sabi lang, hearsay, ito raw ay COVID fund. Kaya nga, kung marang kumilikom ng pondo, so after yan, wala na yan after elections daw. Ewan natin, pero ito, panoorin pa rin natin itong ginawang Pandesal Forum. So mga kaibigan, tunghayan natin.
Philippines today, you make mathematics fashionable. Welcome everyone to Pandesal Forum of Kamuning Bakery Cafe. This is a non-partisan media forum where we invite experts like Dr. Guido David and also our media to dialogue. Also, we invite usually leaders, experts like Dr. Guido David or newsmakers to dialogue with media and intellectuals in an informal setting like Pandesal Forum. I'll give a short introduction lang of you, Dr. Guido David. Although you are very famous, I'd like to give you a proper introduction. Dr. Guido David is professor at University of the Philippines in Diliman. I think 14 years and 6 months already, if I'm not mistaken. Tingin mo, mathematical precision konti. Nakikiano. And he has a PhD from the US. Unique about our speaker, he is an expert in mathematics, especially applied mathematics. His areas of interest, most of us do not know, are including the fields of biomechanics, mathematical modeling, game theory, numerical analysis, mathematics of finance, machine learning, etc. He graduated aside from UP Diliman. He got his master's degree in mathematics from Texas A&M University, and he also earned his doctorate degree in biomedical and medical engineering from Texas A&M University also. And many people do not know he's an award-winning mathematician. So let us welcome Dr. Guido David of Octa Research Group. Can you give us an opening statement, Professor Guido David, mainly about what's happening with the pandemic? Our numbers seem to be very nice. Last night was the first night, I think, that everything is no more curfew. Kasi our staff in Kamuning Bakery, we already closed now at 9 p.m. Usually it's earlier. And I treated all of them to this Goto place, or it's a simple place, 24 hours open already near Morato area. Can you tell us what's happening with the Philippines, how you foresee the situation and its impact on the Philippine economic recovery? Welcome, Dr. Guido David.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Wilson. And always happy to be a guest here. I'm sorry I was a bit late. Had some technical problems.
Yes.
I'd like to share my screen so I could just go over maybe quickly what I want to talk about, at least the situationer, what we're seeing.
Yes.
Obviously, everybody knows now we're seeing good numbers right now. How good will it go? So anyway, if we see a plot of the, this is just for the NCR, but for the entire Philippines, we're already averaging less than 4,000 cases a day. That's a 7-day average. And in fact, we're seeing low numbers. How low is that? That's already as low as back in March. And if we look at NCR, if we look at the orange 7-day average right now, as of November 3, it's actually already as low as before the pandemic started in July. So it's about, we're averaging about 600 cases per day. So essentially we have reversed the Delta surge already in the NCR. We're back to where we were before the surge in July.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And it's not just, the good news is not just in the NCR. If we look at the other areas, so NCR, we consider it low risk with a 4% testing positivity rate. You can see it on the right column. I know there's a lot of numbers here, but almost everything is green, which is considered low. The only moderate is the yellow is the ADAR. We're not yet at low ADAR, but we're getting there. We're just averaging now 600 cases, 630 cases per day. Rizal is also low risk. Bulacan is also low risk. Cavite is also low risk, and its positivity rate is down to 3%. Positivity rate is very important because it shows us that we are testing enough and we're detecting enough cases. And also the ADAR in Cavite is already almost at 2, so it could be at very low risk soon. Laguna is also low risk. Batangas, Davao City, also low risk. Pampanga is low risk. In fact, the ADAR of Pampanga is 1.67. We consider that low, but it's not yet at very low risk like Cebu City, because Cebu City, everything is green. We consider that, probably the best case that we could see right now.
Sorry, what is ADAR? Sorry, what is ADAR
Yes.
for people who are not experts?
Yeah, sorry about that. I will actually discuss or at least mention each of the columns here. So we have the risk level, which is our assessment based on COVID Act now.
Yes.
And the lowest is, of course, very low. We used to be at critical, obviously, but now we're at low. Cases is the 7-day average in cases. So we can see Cebu City is averaging 15 cases per day.
Wow.
15 cases per day, yes. And even a whole province like Rizal, relatively higher, but only 130 cases per day for the whole province of Rizal. For the NCR, 630. The growth this is the 1 week growth rate. So that means cases in NCR right now, 630. That's 49% lower compared to last week. So if we just compare last week versus this week, it was a decrease of 49%. Now, some might ask, why is Cebu's growth rate not so low? It's only 6%. Well, it's because their cases are already very low. They're probably at close to what we call the endemic stage we're in. It's just going to be around that number, 10 to 15 cases per day, which I'm not sure if it could go lower, or maybe it could go lower once they vaccinate enough, more people than what they have now. ADAR is the daily attack rate. This is the number of cases, but yes, this is relative to population. So at least we can compare areas with different population. For example, Pampanga has, I think, almost 3 million population. So per 100,000, there's only 1 case per day for every 100,000 people. So we can use that to measure the density and also measure the risk for large gatherings. Let's say if we're going to have a concert of 10,000 people, what's the risk? I'm actually going to put out a paper like that, yes. Also for theaters, we can estimate risk. Now, infection, this is the reproduction number. This is what we talk about all the time. This gives us the number of people infected by each carrier of the virus. So right now, everything's less than 1. In fact, they're at really low numbers, less than 0.5. We haven't seen really good infection rates. In fact, over the past year, since March of last year, we haven't seen, infection rates like 0.4 or 0.3. We usually got it down to about 0.5 or 0.6. Then it started increasing again. This is hopeful because it means that the virus is really weakening. It's weakening, especially in these areas. H-score is the hospital care utilization, and everything. The highest is Rizal with 48%. So everything is really low. So hospitals are really doing well right now. And in fact, this is really even lower because hospitals have even reduced their capacity. So they've removed some COVID beds, converted back to non-COVID. And for ICUs, the highest I can see is Batangas, which with 57% should not be a problem. And testing is the positivity rate. This is the number of people who test positive. So for every 100 people who get the test, only 4 test positive. So this was as high as 25%. For NCR. Yeah. And provinces usually have a higher positivity rate because they have fewer laboratories. But Cebu City has 2% positivity rate. This is really, really good positivity rate. That's why we know that Cebu City is really at very low risk. And hopefully NCR will be there soon, maybe in a few weeks, if the trends continue. So again, this was as of a few days ago, but if we compare it to other countries, India, they had a massive surge, but now they're at 14,000 cases per day. This is equivalent to about 1,000 cases per day for us converted if we use population. Indonesia is the same thing. They're averaging now less than 1,000 cases per day. So this is what we're hoping to see. Malaysia is still a bit significant, but they're also decreasing on a downward trend. They had the surge around the same time as us. Singapore is the only one which is still having concerns, but we have some possible explanations why Singapore is still having a surge. So basically, Wilson.
Yes,
friend,
good news.
Everything is mostly, I would say mostly, it's mostly good news. There's still some areas in the country which still have a significant number of cases.
Yes.
But most of them are already on a downward trend. Like Zamboanga City is already decreasing, Dumaguete is already starting to decrease. So only a few, I think I could count maybe less than 5 municipalities with still significant risk. Everything is going down. The major areas are going down. I think we're in for a good December, a good holiday. As far as projections, I think we already projected that we'll be at less than 2,000 cases. In fact, yesterday, we were already at less than 2,000 cases yesterday, but the 7-day average will still hopefully decrease. What are the reasons? Well, possible reasons are, of course, we're vaccinating a lot of people. Secondly, we continue to still follow health protocols. It doesn't mean that numbers are good. We can start removing face masks. We should still continue to wear.
Still be careful.
Masks. Still be careful. Yes. Still practice.
Still wear face masks.
Yes, I agree. Still wear a face mask.
But no more face shield. Is it correct?
Well, I'm not the one to decide on that, Mr. Wilson. What I said was I supported not using face shields in cinemas.
Inside theaters, movie theaters.
Because of the movie experience. I think they could discuss maybe if they can start removing face shields even in malls, but
even in restaurants, because when we eat, we cannot have face shield.
Right, yeah, we shouldn't have face shields in restaurants.
It doesn't make sense about eating with face shield.
Right, yes, Wilson, yes. When we eat your pandesal, we shouldn't have face shields.
Thank you. Next time, Dr. David, some of the media friends want to see you physically na at Kamuning Bakery. We have social distancing naman, and it's an open air thing with 8.4 meter high ceiling.
Wow. Let me know when. I'll be there. Yeah.
Let's have with the media and actually have good coffee and pandesal. Thank you,
you,
Dr. Guido David. Maraming questions ang media. I'd like to start na if or okay. Some of the media questions. You look very well and parang you look more relaxed now than a few months ago.
Well, everybody should be more relaxed because the numbers are looking good. So I think we're
thank you.
And I think it's going to continue, Wilson.
Yes.
Like I said, I think we're going to have a good holiday. We have more than 80% of the adults fully vaccinated in NCR.
Wow, 80% already in Metro Manila NCR.
And with the first dose, I think 92. I forgot the exact number, but it's more than 90% with first dose. So I think we're getting close to 100. I don't know if we'll get to 100%.
Wow, 90% already first dose at Metro Manila.
Yes. Yeah. So maybe I could start answering some questions.
Yes. There's a question here. Actually, I want to ask a question na. Kasi, and then media friends have a question na. No? In the past few months, some of the foreign media, like Nikkei Asia of Japan and Bloomberg, they keep depicting the Philippines as very grim and negative. Like we are the last place now in the world in COVID response. I'd like to ask you as a mathematician and scientist, we are not political on both sides of both of us. I want to ask you because the US just recently lang yesterday already surpassed 750,000 deaths from COVID, 750,000 deaths COVID. They have 300 plus million people. We have 110 million people, I think, and we only have 43,000 deaths. Do you think the Nikkei Asia article and listing and all that is a little bit unfair to us in the Philippines about COVID response? That is my question to you as a scientist and mathematician. You have the numbers. What do you think about that? Kasi sabi ng Israel Embassy 1 month ago, when they came over, sabi ko, what can we learn from you? The Israeli envoy told the Pandesal Forum, actually, we could learn a few things from you. You're not doing that bad. Because at that time, they were averaging like 10,000 cases a day, and we were averaging 20,000 cases. But we are multiples their population. The Metro Manila population is bigger than the whole Israel Republic. What is your take about this? Is it really that bad, our COVID response, or we're not doing that bad, sabi ng Israeli envoy? What do you think of? Based on the numbers.
Yeah, that's a good question, Wilson. So, first question is it unfair? Well, not necessarily because I mean they're making the criteria, so they can decide on
Yes.
what they want to do. When I looked at their measures, it's mostly looking at economic factors, how well countries have coped up with the economic. So deaths was not one of the criteria.
That was not a criteria. Yes.
Right. We have one of the lowest death percentage in the world. For a country of our size, we are
number
only,
12 in the world.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so our deaths is comparatively much lower compared to many other countries. Yes. We always feel give our prayers to those who passed away, but relatively 40,000 deaths is actually lower. So I admit that our economy has been impacted by the pandemic, but we have also saved lives, and we have also learned a lot. We have learned to work together, to be stronger as a nation, I think. And so maybe it's not fair in the sense that they didn't use death as a rank, because I think our priority is saving lives and compassion, because not only about saving lives, but we also had to deal with challenges about OFWs and LSIs. In some countries, if they have foreigners stranded, when they lock down, people are not allowed to enter, or it's very limited. So I think we had to cope up with these challenges, and we have I personally, I think we have done fairly well despite these challenges. I'm not saying we're the best. We have a lot of challenges with contact tracing, with testing, everything. But I don't think we're the worst in the world. And so maybe for me it's a bit unfair, but objectively I have to say that they can decide on their own criteria.
Their own criteria. Thank you very much, Professor Guido David. Some questions here. I'll start now with the questions. Some would like to ask directly. Some would like to ask. I will read a few questions, then I will invite the others to ask their questions. Red Mendoza of Manila Times is asking, Dr. Guido David, do you see any dangers of reopening our international borders in the Philippines, like what Thailand is doing right now? Are there dangers, or are we okay to open borders now like Thailand now? Red Mendoza of Manila Times.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Wilson, and for Red, who's a very good reporter. There's always a risk when we do something, when we reopen businesses. There's always going to be some level of risk when we reopen our borders, and at some point we have to, assume certain risks. Of course, our strategy has been to balance risks with the reward, which is restoring our economy. So I agree that there will be some level of risk, but I think at some point we cannot stay really closed forever. I think one of the things we have to remember is that when we have travelers, we still need to implement whatever our measures are strictly. If it's going to require testing, then we require testing. If it's going to be quarantine, then we require quarantine. And I think we can balance the risk with having a list also of countries, just like what other countries do.
Yes.
We might have a proposal for that, our own green list, yellow list, red list, something like that. So at least maybe for travelers from countries with higher risk, maybe we can be more careful. Maybe we will require some quarantine.
Yes.
And for countries with much lower risk, and especially vaccinated, maybe we don't even need to have quarantine. We just need to have them tested.
That's good news. Follow-up question from Red Mendoza, Manila Times. Guido David, do you see the removal of face mask mandates as main reason why surges in COVID happen in other countries like the United Kingdom and the United States, US?
Okay, well, I have to qualify that when I answer this, I don't have But it's very possible, of course, that when we remove face masks, that's going to cause surges. These countries, they're trying to get back to the old normal. And for them, wearing face mask is political. So that's why they don't want to wear face masks. But for Filipinos, you know, I know there will be some people who want to get back to the old normal, but I think we can wait. And you know, if we follow the pattern in other countries like what I presented in India, in Indonesia, where generally people wear face masks, there hasn't been a resurgence. So though I don't have sorry, headphones got disconnected. But although I don't have the data, I think I agree that there is a significant level of risk when we start removing face shields. The effectivity.
Audio down.
Sorry, not face shields, face mask. Yeah.
Baka you can make the audio higher down volume. Sabi nung ano, can we make the audio a little bit ano daw?
Hello, hello.
Okay na audio?
Oh, hello. Okay na ba?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you.
Sorry about that. So
yes.
Yeah, so I think we will still be requiring face masks for the foreseeable future until the risk becomes really, really low, because we want to prevent resurgence like what they're seeing in other countries.
Baka the volume of your audio, Professor. Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Yes, thank you, Professor. There's a question here from Miss Caroline Bonkin. Wala nakalagay which newspaper na. Sabi ni Miss Caroline Bonkin, when did you start seeing the reversal of the effects of the Delta surge? Nasa pre-surge levels na po ba tayo?
Yes,
Caroline Bonkin.
Yeah, I know her. She's we always communicate. She's a reporter from CNN.
Yes, from CNN. Thank you.
Yes. So
CNN Philippines. Yes.
Yeah, we started seeing it middle of September. The peak happened in September 11 in cases. And
malapit daw kayo sa microphone daw kung pwede, Professor. Can you talk nearer the microphone?
Hello, hello.
Baka you can speak nearer your microphone.
Hello, hello.
Pwede ba? Larissa, pwede magsalita ka kung okay.
Hello, hello. Test.
Kanina, in the beginning, you were very clear. Bilisan mo. Yung linya daw ng ano niyo.
Hello? Hello, hello?
Yung linya of your microphone, baka lapit sa mouth daw ninyo.
Ito, I'll try this.
Yan.
Clear.
Yan, this is much clearer.
Okay.
Yan. Because the media wants to hear your voice. You look younger pa without that, ano. Thank you very much. Sorry for the interruption.
Thank you. So yes.
Yes, very clear. Wow, 100 times clearer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wilson. So regarding that question of Miss Caroline, we actually started seeing it around middle of September, and it was actually in our projection that it would start to slow down sometime in September, and we would see a downward trend. So we actually predicted this in our projections. So it's a reversal, yes, and the surge. There were still surges happening in other provinces at that time, but hopefully, and fortunately, right now we're able to contain. I think almost all provinces are on a downward trend, and that's really helpful, for our pandemic management. So, regarding the numbers, yes, we are at around the pre-Delta surge level already in Metro Manila. For the entire country, we're actually back in. It's like we reversed back to March of this year in terms of the number of cases. But for NCR, we've reversed it back to around June, July, at around 600 cases per day. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. David, and thank you to Ms. Caroline Bonkin of CNN Philippines. There's some people who would like to ask their questions personally. I'd like to call Miss Mela Lesmoras of PTB4. Baka you can ask your question. Miss Mela Lesmoras. May question siya.
Hi, good afternoon. Good morning, Sir Wilson and Dr.
Yes,
Guido
morning.
David. Opo. Sir Guido, ang tanong ko lang po when it comes to the downward trend, mai-attribute din po ba natin to sa COVID-19 alert level system? At this point, masasabi ba nating successful na maituturing itong alert level system? At kailan kaya siya napapanahon na maipatupad na sa buong bansa?
Yeah, so those are good questions, Mela. Regarding the yung factors for the downward trend, so we have to enumerate siguro them. To be precise, the downward trend happened middle of September, like I mentioned. So we were still in MECQ, at least the NCR was under MECQ at that time. So nakatulong naman yung lockdown in slowing down the surge at that time and reducing the number of severe cases. Pero it continued under the alert level system. So we have to be fair na the alert level system is working, at least in the NCR. So the key reasons are yung vaccinations, as I mentioned kanina, more than 90% with the first dose of adults in the NCR. Now we're going to be targeting 12 to 17 for vaccinations. And then secondly, the lockdown help and the alert level systems working now. And then thirdly, continued compliance of our kababayans wearing face masks and doing minimum public health standards, which is still important. Makakatulong ba yan sa province? Yes, I agree. I think we should be really implementing the alert level system in the provinces. I know they've already started implementing this in some regions, pero not all. I think there are some regions which are still under MECQ, which I understand because there are still areas where the risk is still significantly high, even though they're on a downward trend because hospitals are still at high occupancy. So yeah, I think we should be implementing them. We should have clear guidelines on how we're going to be implementing these in provinces. Yeah.
Opo. And Dr. David, just for the record, kung may updates pa po tayo, kailan nakikita ng OCTA na pwede nang mag-alert level 2 sa NCR at kailan naman natin nakikita na dapat nang mag-alert level 1 sa NCR?
Okay. Well, right now we're at low risk, so we actually support moving to alert level 2 by November 15. In fact, I supported it even a few days ago for November 1. We could have alert level 2. But we understand that the decision is to stay at alert level 3. It's the decision of the IATF. Sila naman gumagawa ng alert level classifications, not us. Kami, we look at risk assessment. So if they go to alert level 2 by November 15 or 16, then we support it. Pero of course, it will be their decision based on their criteria. Having said that, syempre, even as we go to alert level 2, we should be more mindful of our health restrictions or public health standards, wearing face masks, avoiding large gatherings at this time.
Opo. And panghuli na lamang from my end, Dr. Guido David, kapag nakamit po ba yung 100, kasi malapit na tayo sa 100% vaccination sa NCR, nakikita niyo po ba malabo na bang magkaroon ng surge of cases this holiday season kahit pa magkaroon ng gatherings, Christmas parties, if ever, malabo na ba yung surge pag talagang malawak na yung naging vaccination natin sa NCR?
Well, scientifically, reduced na talaga yung risk natin magka-surge. There could be some risk pa rin of spikes in cases, outbreaks. Pero it will depend on on specifically yung ADAR, yung risk level natin in terms of the incidence of cases. But we're not ruling out the possibility. We could have gatherings, maybe small or medium size. And yung kaninang tanong mo about alert level 1, we can't say yet at this time. Maybe if we're at very low risk, like Cebu City, maybe it's possible. And yes, we have high number of vaccinations. Well, there is one, I would say a small concern na nakikita natin in other countries. It's the waning of the vaccine efficacy after a period of 6 to 9 months. And there is a theory na kaya nagkaroon ng spikes in some countries. For example, Israel yata is one of them. After 6 months, it's because of the waning efficacy. So 6 to 8 months yan. So ibig sabihin, once the vaccines start losing their effectiveness, we might see more outbreaks. That is possible. That's why we support having the booster shots even before it happens, especially those na naunang nagpa-vaccinate. Kasi we started vaccinating March, April. So if we have booster shots around this time up to early next year, we could help prevent these spikes in cases.
Okay, thank you so much po, Dr. David and Sir Wilson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mela Lesmoras of PTB4 for your questions, and Dr. David. We have a next question from some questions from Greg Gregorio of TB5. Baka pwede natin imbitahin. Bago ka magtanong, i-mention ko lang pala, congratulations to Dr. Guido David and the Octa Research Group for recently winning the Gawad Manuel L. Quezon Award from Quezon City. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Congratulations. Oh, you have to celebrate at Kamuning Bakery with us. Coffee and food.
Thank you, thank you.
You're very well-deserving award for all our media friends na they got a recent award. Mr. Greg Gregorio, your questions? O tingin mo naka-mask pa siya, kahit na nasa Zoom siya, very good citizen. Mr. Greg Gregorio.
Yes, sir.
Pag gusto mo makita yung mukha mo, gusto mo mag-alis ng mask, okay lang sa'yo? Para we can see you naman ni Dr. David. Sorry,
since I'm alone,
Mr. Greg Gregorio.
Sir, actually, half of my question have been answered by Professor Guido David already about the waning efficacy of the vaccines. But maybe I just like to ask Professor David if the Octa have this or the Octa have this model of when did we see the vaccination coverage started driving the drop in our cases, since we've started the vaccination back in March.
Yeah, a very good question also. Actually, we have seen the pattern na when it hits 40% of the total population, it starts driving down the number of cases talaga. So it was around that point. I think we were at around 40% in September when cases really started decreasing. Again, it's very important for that in the NCR. In some provinces, they were able to do it with fewer vaccinations. Kasi generally, I mean, I'm not downplaying their efforts, but it's generally more challenging to reduce the cases in the NCR because of the density of people in the NCR.
So, sir, tama po ba? You were saying earlier na we should be rolling out booster shots immediately because trends might be changing in the coming or in the future or in the nearest future because of this waning efficacy of the vaccines.
Baka di narinig yung question. Paki-repeat again.
Okay, sir.
Or
Am I
nawala
clear
siya?
na po? Hello po. Ayan.
Hello, sorry, yes, I got disconnected.
Okay, sir.
Pag-ulit yung question.
Yun po, sir. So you were saying earlier po na we should be rolling out booster shots immediately because we might see trends changing again because of this waning efficacy of the vaccines.
I would tend to think na we should do this as soon as we can. I mean, I understand that we want to vaccinate more people from the provinces where vaccine uptake is relatively lower, and we also want to vaccinate children. But from what I'm hearing, we are going to be receiving a significant number of vaccines. So kumbaga, the supply is not a problem. So I think we could start allocating that. At least kahit sa mga naunang vaccinate, which would be frontliners and seniors and those with comorbidity. So A1, A2, and A3 categories.
All right, sir. Thank you, Sir David. Thank you, Sir Wilson.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Greg Gregorio of TV5. Next to ask question, Dr. Guido David, is Miss Leigh Albis of GMA News. Miss Leigh Albis, good morning.
Good morning po, Sir Wilson.
Yeah.
Good morning, Sir Guido. Sir, tatanong ko lang, DOH the other day said that although cases are still decreasing, they monitored a slowing down of the decline. Like last week, nasa 14% na lang po compared to the 26 to 35% in the previous weeks. Do you share the same observation? And ano po yung implications na nito na nakikita po ninyo sa trend?
Yes, actually, thank you for the question, Leigh. And we did see a slowing down of the trend. I think it happened last week in the NCR. And, I monitor the numbers every day. So when I see a slowing down, I won't say I'm paranoid, but I'm always parang a little bit, I want to look at the numbers carefully and I want to see, is this really slowing down or is this just due to backlog of cases? What's going on? Because, we try to have up-to-date projections and numbers. And that's why when there's a surge, we call it immediately. We're seeing a surge. When there's a downward trend, we call it immediately. It's a downward trend. Now we want to say immediately, is this going to be slowing down now? Are we going to be having a reversal of the trend or is it still going to continue? Because we have to decide. My take on that last week was that it was slowing down perhaps, but maybe there could be some factors. We're not sure if it's the Dolomite thing or something, but it could also be explained by delayed numbers, which happens sometimes. There's some technical errors with the COVID Kaya. Sometimes numbers come in delayed. I'm happy to say that right now, and I also have to qualify this statement. Right now, we have a 33% growth rate compared to last week. So although last week it slowed down, now it suddenly decreased significantly again. 33% growth rate in the NCR. But I have to qualify that, of course, before we get too confident that everything is just diving down. Cases are decreasing very rapidly. I have to qualify that. Also, there's a chance. The positivity rate is low, but we may also have reduced cases because of the holiday effect recently that undas. A lot of people went to provinces. When that happens, cases usually decrease significantly. It happened last year during December. So I'm not saying that there's going to be an uptick. I'm just saying that it might not continue at this very fast pace of 33%, negative 33% growth rate. It might slow down again next week. We're not sure, but hopefully it will still continue decreasing. That's the most important trend that we're looking at.
Mm-hmm. Sir, so you see that the cases will continue to decrease even with the increased mobility, especially with the coming holidays and the possible lowering to alert level 2?
There's always, as I mentioned kanina, there's always going to be risks. So we have to take on some risks. But at the same time, we cannot be always too careful, especially now. I think when, last year, I admit our outlook was a bit more cautious. But this time, after almost 2 years, I think we've learned a lot about, how the virus behaves, how it works, when surges might happen. So I think if we're not careful, there could be upticks. And of course, the biggest threats right now are the waning efficacy that I mentioned, the waning vaccine efficacy, and a possible new variant. But the new variant, we're not seeing this yet in other countries. So the second threat is not really a big threat right now at this time. We're not saying it won't be. There might be a new variant that will come later, but right now we're not seeing it yet. So So there are no significant threats except for maybe the waning efficacy, which we can always, address by having booster shots. So I think I'm quite confident that this trend will now continue. Like I said, there might be upticks, minor outbreaks when people are not careful, due to social gatherings. And there's another factor I failed to mention, related to the alert level system. I mean, I think the local governments are also doing a good job with the granular lockdowns, because right now I heard that we still have 45 areas with a granular lockdown, localized lockdown. So they're still operating, they're still doing their job. We're just not noticing it because the numbers are really good. Almost everywhere cases are down. But that's also helping us prevent, outbreaks and super spreader events. So,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, Lay.
Thank you very much, Lee Aldis of GMA News. Thank you very much. We have a next question here from Professor Joby Miroy of Ateneo. Would you like to ask the question, or would you want me to read it? Professor Joby Miroy,
I can ask.
Miroy of Ateneo, can you ask
I
your
can ask.
question? Yes. Pakiyan na
Hi.
si Dr. Joby Miroy para
Hi,
makita natin
Dr.
yung face niya.
Hi, Dr. David.
Hindi ko makita yung face, Dr. Joby Miroy.
Ayaw eh. All right.
Dr. Joby Miroy, yes.
Ayun.
Ayan.
So is
Ateneo Professor.
is who concurring with the assessment that we're low risk? What's the word from who? What's the protocol by here? We
World
tell
Health
them
Organization daw.
we tell them where we are, or they tell us.
Yes.
Actually, that's a good question, Professor. I'm not even sure what the protocol is. We just publish these reports, and it's for media use, for public use, for use of the businesses, our friends, academe. And we base it on metrics that were developed by COVID Act now in the US. So, it was not something we developed on our own. We just tweaked it around according to the experience in the Philippines. We used also some of the metrics of the Department of Health integrated it. So I would understand if they are more conservative and they would use a moderate risk level. But I showed the numbers a while ago. Only the ADAR is really at moderate risk, even if you're looking at it from a different perspective. They might consider 5% not low enough. I think the CDC wants 3%, but for WHO, 5% is a very acceptable positivity rate. But for the entire Philippines, if they're just going to be looking at the entire country, the positivity rate in the entire country is 8%. So that might not be low enough. So that might not be enough to qualify as low risk. If we're looking at the entire country because of the positivity rate. But I think even who might consider NCR to be at low risk, or maybe borderline moderate risk. So I don't know the exact perspective. So I don't want to be answering for them. I'm just basically giving my take on this matter.
Thank you very much, Dr. Guido David, and thank you for that question, Ateneo Professor Joby Miroy, Dr. Joby Miroy. There's a question here from Miss Aiko Miguel of UMTB. Can we invite her to ask her question? Ayun. Welcome, Miss Aiko Miguel, UMTB.
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Yes, morning.
Yes po. Sir, would also like to ask po, can we say that the current COVID-19 infection in the country is no longer Delta variant driven? And of course, we are not seeing din po new threats of variants dito po sa Pilipinas.
Yes, good question. It's still primarily Delta variant driven, but it's already slowed down significantly. So I think if we take a census of the variants, the Delta variant would still comprise majority of the infections. And based on the experience of many provinces and LGUs, our belief is that most of it was driven by the Delta variant, because the Delta variant is highly infectious. And I mean, if I may use a term, in Delta variant, parang wala siyang patawad eh. So it doesn't care. It just goes through populations, and most countries have really had to go through the Delta variant. And right now, Singapore's going through a Delta variant surge. Pero tayo, I think we've been really able to contain it, and it is the Delta variant. And in a way, it's not good that we had the Delta variant surge, but in a way, it's helpful because it actually boosts natural immunity as well for many kababayans, and that helps protect the population from future surges. So about other variants, right now, I don't think we're seeing many other variants of concern or any other variants of concern actually in the country. I think they detected this Mauritius variant back in March, but I think there's only one case of that, and that was back in March. So I don't think it really spread out. So, okay.
And then, sir, follow up lang din po regarding booster doses. Once we see that the rollout starts na po, kasi ang sabi po ng DOH, it may start before the year ends. So, is there a possibility that we can go very low risk like Cebu City once booster doses starts to roll out and third dose will be given to senior citizens and immunocompromised po?
I think it's very possible we can go to very low risk like Cebu City. So, even in NCR, one LGU is already at very low risk, and that's Navotas. And I think the other LGUs will follow na rin. I mean, some are on the verge of very low risk, like Malabon and Caloocan. So eventually, I think as cases decrease even further, I think we should, there's a very good possibility we'll see that.
And then, sir, clarification lang din po. You mentioned po yung 40% on vaccination. Does this mean, ito po yung sa NCR? Tama po ba?
Which one? Sorry, yung
40% of the target population got vaccinated. NCR po ba ito, sir? You mentioned earlier po.
Sorry, yeah, I mentioned in the NCR, when we reach 40%, that's usually a target when cases will start decreasing significantly. We saw that in other countries. Yes, I was talking about NCR. Yes.
All right, sir. Sir Wilson, thank you po, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Aiko Miguel of UNTV. Thank you sa tanong mo. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you. Before we invite Caroline Bonkin, may tanong dito sa chat box. A little bit different about politics naman. This is from the foreign media. We have some foreign media guests here. Sabi niya, since you're a mathematics expert, is it possible from your point of view as a data scientist, the surveys coming out in the last few weeks and months, do you see the presidential race of 2022 in May still a wide open race? That's a question from one of our friends from foreign media who said, yes, I could mention his name, Raul Dancel of Straits Times.
That's okay. Yes, thank you, Raul, and thank you, Wilson. That's an interesting question. Okta Research also does public opinion polling, so we do surveys. I'm just a numbers guy, so I look at the numbers of these. From what I'm seeing right now, there is a clear front runner, at least for the presidential survey. But based on historical data, races are still usually wide open at this stage. So again, I'm not a political analyst, but I'm just putting it on
numbers guy.
On numbers, right? And so it's usually wide open at this time. So a lot of things can still happen. I think maybe as we get closer to May, then we may have a clearer picture who's a solid front runner. But I think right now, even if preliminary data our survey results show there are some front runners. It's not insurmountable at this time. So that's my
At this point.
yes.
Is it true, Dr. Guido David? I'm not very sure. No, you're the more expert. In the last presidential election, I remember the first guest of Pandesal Forum was Jojo Binay, the vice president. It was September. By September, October, he was still number one, I think. Who was number two? Maybe Grace Po or someone. So is it what you're saying is it's still possible for everyone right now?
Yes.
Statistically, mathematically speaking.
Yes, statistically, I think it's possible. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, there are probably some candidates I won't mention that who who I think would have a really slim chance of,
Going
winning.
up.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean, I think it's still wide open for maybe 3 or 4 candidates.
So
right
top
now.
3, top 4, still very strong possibilities.
I would think so.
Very, very interesting. There's another question before I call out Miss Caroline Bonkin. There's a question here from earlier, Miss Kathleen De Villa of Inquirer. Would you like to ask your question, Miss Kathleen De Villa of Philippine Daily Inquirer? You could ask your question or I could read it, your preference. Miss Kathleen De Villa. Some people would like me to read or... sige. I could read it na lang daw. Thank you, Miss Kathleen De Villa. So ang question ni Miss Kathleen De Villa of Philippine Daily Inquirer is, hi, Doc David. Based on the latest NVOC data, only 58% of seniors have been fully vaccinated as of November 2. Do you consider this a low vaccination coverage for this vulnerable group? And will this be a threat to the downward trend we are experiencing now? Thank you po. From Kathleen De Villa of Philippine Daily Inquirer.
Yeah, that's a very good point also. So thank you, Kathleen, for the question. I haven't looked at the data itself on the entire country, but my understanding is the 58% of seniors could be nationally. I don't think this is for NCR because in NCR, we have a very high coverage already for the adult population. So this is definitely a concern. Based on our own survey of the research, we found that there's significant hesitancy still in many rural areas in provinces. So in Visayas and Mindanao. In NCR, there's almost no hesitancy because we have almost 100% coverage now. So it's not a problem. But in some rural areas, I'm not saying in metro areas, but in rural areas in the provinces, there's significant hesitancy. And I think this will probably include many of the seniors that you mentioned. Will this be a threat? It's always a concern because in many countries with a high vaccination coverage, it's usually the unvaccinated who get who get infected when there's a resurgence in cases. So I mean, for example, I'll just give an example. Maybe if the new variant, the Delta AY 4.2 comes in, it might not cause such a disruption in the NCR, but perhaps it may still affect a lot of these unvaccinated people. So definitely, I think we have to do a better job in getting a lot of these people vaccinated.
Thank you very much, Dr. David, and thank you for those questions, Miss Kathleen De Villa of Philippine Daily Inquirer. Follow up lang to Miss De Villa's question. So is it the same what happened in America and UK to what is in the Philippines na 90+% of people who are seriously confined sa hospital and who die are yung mga walang vaccine? Is it true na higher percentage ng mga namamatay or getting sick are not vaccinated or refused to vaccinate? Is it true statistically?
Well, I haven't collated all the data for that, but when I first looked at the data of breakthrough infections,
Yes.
statistically, yes, we're seeing more of the unvaccinated being brought to getting severe COVID and being brought to hospitals.
And even deaths.
Even deaths, yes. So,
So,
I agree, but I don't have the exact numbers right now.
yes. So warning to those na ayaw pa magpabaksin. Sorry na lang magkasakit, kaya please cooperate, di ba? Next, we'd like to call Miss Caroline Bonkin of CNN Philippines to please ask your questions.
Hi. Hello, sir. Good morning po.
Yes, welcome. Good morning. Saan yung face ni Miss Bonkin? Ayan. Welcome.
Alright. Prof. David, tatanong ko lang po sana if we still have concerned provinces or areas po in the country.
Right. Actually, when I last looked at the national data, and this was just a few days ago, the main concern siguro was Lubang in Occidental Mindoro. We assessed it to be at critical risk. So high ADAR, high positivity rate, 44%. Reproduction number was also critical. So, and that's the one. But most other areas are already on a downward trend. Like I mentioned, La Trinidad and Dumaguete were still at high risk based on our metrics, but they're also on a downward trend now. So when I look at the daily data, there are some areas that come up that were not concerned areas before, like, for example, this one, Pola, Oriental Mindoro, or Jones, Isabela. I mean, these are just examples. Puerto Princesa also saw a slight increase in cases. So there are areas that we could consider of slight concern, but not of major concern. I think we just have to maybe focus on resources there so that they could have the number of cases go on a downward trend or continue on a downward trend.
Sir, just to clarify, paakyat po yung cases dito?
Hindi, pababa na sa they're at high risk mainly because of high hospital utilization. Pero sa La Trinidad and sa Dumaguete, they're already going down. Sa Lubang, I think it's already starting to go down. Right?
And another question lang po. Sir, NCR is on the 3rd week under alert level 3. And then yung ibang provinces naman po, just last week, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, na isa ilalim sa lower alert level. So I'm just wondering, sir, kasi di ba you usually explain that it takes time bago po makita yung effect ng pagluluwag ng movement restrictions. So sir, can we already say na despite yung pagluwag in the previous weeks, mababa yung cases? Or is there still a possibility that in a week or two, baka umakyat po ulit yung cases because of these changes?
Well, there's always thank you for the question. There's always a possibility may delayed effect, especially for some provinces. They tend to have more lags sa cases and even sa deaths. And that's why sometimes nagkakaroon na spike even yung deaths because of lags. So there's always the possibility. Pero as you know, while we're not seeing it yet, it gives us more confidence na maybe the alert level system's working even in the provinces. So yeah. But again, we can't rule out the possibility na magkakaroon ng spike sometime in the future. It's possible, but so far we're not seeing it yet. So I remain optimistic until we start seeing a change in the numbers.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Caroline Bonkin of CNN Philippines for your questions. Saka maganda yung mga nyo. Going back to your earlier answers about political surveys, when will you release your presidential and vice presidential and even possibly senatorial surveys? How often would you do this? Since you're going to be less busy, hopefully, with COVID cases, maybe you can help us track the political race. Do you have projections like when is your next, when will you release, or if you are doing political surveys?
Well, yung colleague kasi Professor Ranjit is in charge of the operational side, so I can't commit
Yes.
to that. But I think we're going to have another survey December. We had a survey last July.
Yes.
Sorry. It was actually last September. But the results, I think some of them were released, some of them were not released. We had senatorial survey results. It's mostly compatible then with what we're seeing with the survey of SWS and Pulse. But I'm hoping we can have some different questions or something so that we can take a different perspective, yes, on these surveys, presidential, vice, and then senatorial.
In the presidential surveys pa, would you, because traditionally there are like 5 or 6 names, would you be following that type of list? Because the reason I asked that, we had another survey company that spoke here 2 weeks ago, Publicos Asia, and some 2 University of the Philippines professors from your university, different political science department, they were asking why the socialist labor leader is not included in the list or all these things. Would you like list like how many people would you go into that later on? And
yeah, well, Wilson, we usually list down those who are, I mean, right now they've filed the COC, so we'll just include those who filed the COC in the survey.
Not all siguro, 90 plus, diba?
Yeah, not all. I mean, not all. I mean,
major one.
Not the nuisance candidates, syempre.
Yes.
Yeah, the ones usually with the backing, the legitimate looking ones. Kasi, I mean, to be fair to the other survey companies, the most recent survey, the COECs were not filed yet, so there was still uncertainty which candidates would be running, which candidates would not be. So there's some speculation on the selection of the list, and that also affects the survey results, because maybe if we remove this name, the results will change. Will be different because of the reduction of or the decrease in the number of names.
Thank you very much. When you do that, we'll invite you again to talk about political surveys. There's a follow-up. Dr. David, there's follow-up question from Mr. Red Mendoza of Manila Times. Can we invite him? Can we invite Mr. Red Mendoza if it's okay to ask his question?
Hello.
Yes.
Hi.
Welcome, Red. Wala yung face ni Mr. Red Mendoza. Yan.
Ayan.
Yun, welcome.
Ayun po. Thanks to Sir Wilson. Just a short clarification na po, Doc. Are we seeing po ba na mangyari po ba yung 3-digit cases po natin like what happened last December then? Kasi last year we had 3-digit cases around 500, 600, 700. Wow. Are we seeing that again, that trend ngayon? Well, of course we are now approaching 99% first dose vaccinations and 80% second dose, and the government is and Secretary Galvez said na baka the NDOC, Yusek Kabotay said na there's a possibility that the vaccinations may reach up to 90% by January. So are we seeing 3-digit cases?
Yeah, it's very possible, Red. So that's actually in the outlook. So with the increased vaccination and like I said, hopefully magka-boosters na yan, and vaccinating the 12 to 17, I definitely see the possibility that we could get to 3-digit cases in the country. In fact, I'm hoping for that. I'm praying for that. So, but let's see. I mean, these are still projections. They will depend on factors. They will depend on people continuing to follow public health standards while cases are still above 1,000.
And last question, Doc. I know this is a very contentious issue, pero of course, December always bazaars and gatherings and parties and all. Do you see po ba that we can possibly loosen around restrictions to involve siguro mga bazaars, gatherings, as long as health standards are met. I mean, dun sa alert level po
Nakapas.
kasi, sa alert level 2 po kasi, they allow at least 50% yata for vaccinated individuals to hold limited gatherings and 70% outdoors. Do we see po ba na we will go to that level? Basta nakasuot lang ng face mask and yung mga pupunta po doon ay vaccinated, or is it too early to have gatherings like bazaars, mga tiangge, especially during the holiday season kung
Yes.
saan it's expected na talagang dadayo ang tao, like for example Divisoria or
Yes.
trade halls na mga trade fairs and all that.
Yeah, that's a good question, Red. I mean, I think that's definitely possible. Pero ayoko naman pangunahan. I mean, I think we also would have to look at the data. And as you know, we're working with the Go Negosyo groups as well. So they might ask us to, look at the data, give us some inputs. So siguro ano ko muna yung question na yan. Papass muna ako sa question yan. But that's a good question. I think we could definitely study that in terms of and that's related din sa ADAR natin, sa infection rate natin, or sa incidence rate. And if the cases decrease further, kunyari 3 digits, I think there's we'll have more confidence to have those kinds of activities.
As always, Doc, thank you. Thank you, Sir Wilson.
Thank you very much, Red Mendoza of Manila Times. We have a question here from Mr. Rafael Bosano of ABS-CBN. Can we invite him to, kung okay sa kanya, are you okay to ask your question directly, Mr. Rafael Bosano of ABS-CBN News? Babasahin ko na lang. Sige, no problem. Thank you, Mr. Rafael Bosano of ABS-CBN News. Ang tanong niya, Dr. Guido David, the Department of Health made a projection of active cases ranging from 2,000 to 49,000 active cases by December 15, depending on mobility, vaccination, healthcare capacity, and compliance to health standards. Does Okta Research see the same numbers? From Rafael Bosano of ABS-CBN News. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rafael, for the question. Right now, we have 38,000 active cases in the country. So I think yung projection ng Department of Health, they have different scenarios. If this happens, if this happens. That's why medyo malaking range nila from 2,000 to 49,000. If it's 49,000, obviously it means that there's an increase happening from now until December. I personally, while that may be possible, I personally would be inclined to say na I'm expecting cases to be decreasing further, or maybe at worst, baka staying at the same level, endemic level. And we saw that last year. We were endemic at around 2,000 cases per day. So na-stop tayo sa 2,000 daily cases. 2,000 active seems like a low number, but I haven't run the math para to check on the number of active cases by December. So I think our scenarios would be compatible with one of their possible scenarios. My fearless forecast is that we won't reach 3 million cases this year. So, I mean, I know we already have 2.7 million, and that seems like a lot, but I think we are not going to be reaching 3 million by the end of this year. So that's the number I'm looking at. And yeah, syempre, we're hoping that the numbers will continue to decrease. I think the DOH made a fair warning naman na if we don't follow minimum public health standards, we could have an increase in cases to 49,000. I think that's the messaging. And I think we have to respect that. We still have to wear face masks and observe public health standards at this time.
And convince the very few people na ayaw magpa-vaccine to please cooperate, di ba?
Yes, yes.
Don't
Kasama
believe in
yan.
fake news, di ba?
Yes, yes. Don't believe in fake news, Sana. I mean, they don't have to listen to us. They can do their own research. They can look at sources.
Vaccine saves lives.
Right. We do our research. We base it on studies, on actual data, and what CDC says or what WHO says.
Yes, yes.
So we do our research. Hindi naman tayo namumulat lang ng data from nowhere.
Hindi to hula-hula. So thank you very much, Dr. Guido David, and thank you to Rafael Bosano again of ABS-CBN News for that question. We have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, Doctor. I know you are very busy counting the good news now and the trends and studying, and also you're teaching pa rin, no? Dr. David? Your students are very fortunate. Sana we could enroll. Baka gumaling kami sa math. There's a question here. Actually, it's my question. I'm just curious, Dr. David, you showed also other countries, the trend seems to be weakening and lessening, stabilizing. Can we say na statistically speaking, what happened to the so-called and unfairly named Spanish influenza of 1918, the pandemic 100 years ago, might be repeating now? Kasi kung hindi ako mistaken, it started 1918. Actually, unfair to Spain kasi it started in Kansas now, in the military bases in Kansas, USA, not Spain. Pero it was wrongly named Spanish influenza. And then later on, almost 2 years later, nawala yata. Parang it just disappeared worldwide. Weekend. Is it happening now? Do you see a possibility of this history repeating itself? Is it possible, Dr. David, aside from all the vaccines that we have and the health protocol, do you see that possible scenario?
Sorry, Wilson, my understanding is the question is if it's possible that it will
worldwide.
Right, worldwide it will disappear.
Or weaken.
Weaken, like, right?
Yeah.
Like what happened with the Spanish flu, parang after about 2 years it weakened. And I think it's very possible. I think we're seeing that then. Of course, numbers can change, trends can change. I could be wrong. But right now, and especially with scientific advancement, we have to think that as well.
More vaccines.
More vaccines, not just vaccines, but the prophylactic treatments, the medication that they now have. We are hearing many new medicine that are good for treating COVID. And that's why
not the animal medicine, no, Doctor.
No, not that one. These ones are approved by our medical professionals. Kasi
so you are against ivermectin, di ba? Like all scientists.
Well, I mean, I'm not seeing any data that supports it right now. So I mean, I'm an open-minded scientist. So if there's data that supports it, then we will look at it. But if I'm not seeing any data that supports it, right? Yes, then I go with the data. But the other medication that we're talking about from credible, good companies, our doctors are very hopeful, and they say these are very effective, and they're using it to reduce severe cases, treat severe cases. So we're very optimistic about that. So not just the vaccines, but the medicine, and the fact that we were able to be resilient to fight against this virus. This virus is very challenging, but I think we're nearing the end. Actually, that's my personal opinion.
That's very good news.
Yeah, so I don't think. I mean, I've read some articles that say that this could last for 5 years or 10 years. I think what they're saying is that the virus will still be there, but it will be at a very weak level.
Common cold na sana.
Parang ganun na lang.
Ang trangkaso na hanggang ngayon walang gamot naman eh. Yung trangkaso,
yes. The flu, it mutates rapidly, pero we don't lock down because of the flu. So hopefully this will be the I mean, we really want to get back to our old normal, to resume life as it was in 2019. So
Yes.
hopefully nga magtuloy-tuloy na yan.
So, but you recommend pa rin again to everyone, please cooperate with vaccines, consider booster shots, and always please wear mask, di ba?
Yes.
Please
Tama
try
yan,
to wear mask. And if possible, don't gather too much na puro crowded pa, not yet.
Not yet.
Listen to what the government and you, the scientists, are saying.
Yes, yes.
So we could continue this good news momentum, di ba?
Yes, and that's so we can have a good December, a good holiday, a good
A
Christmas.
real so yun, always that we greet each other maligayang Pasko will really mean it will be more meaningful than the usual Merry Christmas. Talagang it might be really merrier for everyone.
Yeah, baka yung pwede niyo ma-invite si Jose Marie Chan sa
Yes,
bakery.
yes. Uy, good idea. Ilista mo. But you have to be there, ha?
Yeah, I will be there.
You're the good news guy. He is the music guy.
What
So the
music
two
guy?
of you. Actually, alam mo, Professor Guido David, the things you're saying kanina up to now is our music to our ears already, alam mo yun? Professor. What you're saying is like music to our ears. Better than any Christmas carol. So thank you very much again. Since we don't have time now for more questions, we'd like to invite you, Dr. Guido David, to have a closing statement to summarize your thoughts, your forecast. At saka maganda what you said earlier, your fearless forecast that we have 2.7 million cases already, but if we might not hit 3 million by the end of the year, that's very nice. Hindi lang fearless forecast, very hopeful forecast. Can you give us your closing statement to all our media friends? Professor Dr. Guido David, Doctor Research Award-winning, nanalo ng Gawad Manuel L. Quezon Award. By the way, nanalo din ang Kamuning Bakery niyan a few years ago. But you are deserving of it talaga. Very, very deserving. Greatly deserved. Dr. David?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. And deserving din kayo, I'm sure, yung pagkapanalo ng Kamuning Bakery. You're doing a good job and a good public service to the country. Thank you again for inviting me.
Thank
you. I know everyone who's attending here, we're all doing, public service. We're all doing our share.
Yes.
Sometimes we get called up on duty. I mean, before the pandemic started, I'm a professor. I'm just really doing my work. I thought that I could contribute to the discussion with my mathematical models. And hopefully I was able to help our country, help our people, help the government, help the media, help the businesses with what I'm doing. This is really about the Filipino people. And what we have learned over the past more than 1 year, we've learned to fight, to be resilient, because this is something that we never experienced. I never experienced this in my lifetime. I mean, some people may have experienced the World War, which is something that, an event that disrupts our lives. And this is the first time we have, at least me, this is the first time I experienced something like this. And, at the start, we don't know what we have to do. We're a bit confused. We didn't have the SARS here and the MERS, which affected other countries. So it was our first time really to deal with something. And even for many countries, I'm sure it was the first time to deal with something. And there were a lot of different opinions, different strategies. I mean, do we just let the virus, take over? I mean, do we just accept it and not close up or lock down, or do we lock down? We had to make difficult decisions. We could always second guess our decisions, but that's not important. The important is that we have battled this, and we are going to be moving forward now. I mean, let's not look at what happened in the past. Let's look forward to the future. And I think a lot of people have learned also to appreciate the small things in life. We have neglected this, and maybe this is a lesson for us. The small things we take for granted, social gatherings with family, with friends, going out, eating PANDESAL at Kamuning Bakery. Some of these small things we have more appreciation for these small things, even going to a theater that we have been deprived. So as we move forward and as we get back, to closer to the old normal, I think, this hope, this message of hope, I hope would encourage us to be better people, to be more mindful, to be more helpful to our countrymen, to be of, to live our lives the best way we can. We don't know when, when our time is up here.
Yes.
I know because over the past year and a half, I know a lot of people, friends, relatives who passed away, and I always pray for them. They're always in my thoughts. Pero but this also helped me have more appreciation for friendships for our country. So yan, as we move towards the holiday, diba, the season for giving and for forgiving, yun, I think we could carry this hope, and hopefully we'll be a better nation, we'll be better people this year and next year. So yun, so in the meantime, keep safe, everyone. And again, thank you for always inviting me. You're a good friend, Mr. Wilson. And thank you for all the media people and friends and academics who attended today's forum.
Thank you very much to the very eloquent, very excellent analyst and very patriotic intellectual Professor Dr. Guido David for your very enlightening, thought-provoking, and very hopeful analysis and your thoughts. May request dito of one of our media friends, Miss Aiko Miguel of UNTV. Hi po, pa-request naman ng copy of the slides ni Professor David. Thank you again. Can we request the media friends to text your email addresses so we could request Professor Guido David to share his slides? And Professor, thank you very much, not only for helping us with your science, with your mathematics analysis to guide us, the Philippines, for our resilience, our teamwork. Many people in the world or even in the Philippines think we are so-called known for crab mentality, no discipline. But actually, during this pandemic, we have shown the world that we are not undisciplined. We are actually more disciplined than our former colonizer, the US. We have somehow managed to prevent as many deaths in other countries despite our third world developing country facilities and medical facilities. So thank you very much for scientists and mathematicians like you galvanizing, deploying your mathematical genius for saving lives, for saving the economy, and for inspiring all of us to do the right things. You have, you, Professor Guido David, and Octa Research not only deserve award, but deserve more support. You have also made math and science fashionable or hindi boring. You have made math and science very relevant and important to everyone in the Philippines. So thank you very much. Parang poster boy kayo of math and science. And also, what's happening now, what you just said, reminds all of us that we should be always positive thinking, optimistic, because no pandemics last forever. Even the so-called Black Plague of Europe that killed like 50%, 70% of some towns in Europe before, it did not last forever. The so-called Spanish influenza or flu did not last forever. So thank you very much, Professor Guido David of Octa Research Group again for talking at Pandesal Forum of Kamuning Bakery Cafe. And thank you very much to our media friends for the very engaging, interesting questions you shared and your suggestions. Hopefully we could meet soon before Christmas in a gathering with coffee, breads, and food. We also, alam mo, Guido David, Professor, I'll share with you, we also have our very simple Pandesal survey at the bakery. All the presidential candidates have a special pandesal sandwich named after them, and every customer who buys, we jot them down. It's a not very scientific way of doing it, but it's a very fun way. We'd like to invite you one of these days. Di ba you live in Quezon City?
Yes, yes, Mr. Wilson. Yes, I'll buy one of your pandesals. I'll buy one of your presidential candidates.
You have to come, ha? We'll invite you and treat you to coffee. Once again, ayun, galing naman ni Clarissa and Mariel. Just to show you lang, this is our very simple pandesal survey. And alam mo, I'll tell you a secret pa, Professor David and our media friends. In other places, there's vote buying. Sorry, here, there's no vote buying. Voters should buy. Iba ito, baliktad ito ng vote buying. Every voter should commit their vote by buying a pandesal sandwich meal for their favorite candidates. So once again, thank you very much to the very talented, very honest, and very credible and very idealistic Professor Guido David, who has utilized his math whiz talents for public service. And congratulations to Octa Research and to you also. Ay, may question daw, sandali. May question pa isa, last. Pahabol daw, sandali. There's pahabol question from Raul Dancel of Straits Times. Bakit daw mas mahal ng 5 piso ang pandesal sandwich ni Lenny Robredo? We will change it, we will change it kasi our accountant was saying I use the most expensive corned beef. We don't advertise here pero hindi ako nagbobola. The corned beef sandwich kasi of Vice President Lenny Robredo is the most expensive brand. It's a very famous brand, local brand that we use. So nagko-complain accountant ko, but I will adjust it. Clarissa, paki-adjust, dapat lahat pareho presyo. Lahat pareho presyo, baka misunderstanding. Si Lenny Robredo and Pande Lenny and Pande Bongbong are the more expensive ones. We have to make it equal, kung hindi magagalit yung mga professor sa math katulad ni Professor Guido David. The numbers are not equal, baka ang results might be affected. Thank you very much to our very talented journalist, Mr. Raul Dancel of Straits Times. It's a international paper na very good. Thank you also to Jillian Ropero of ABS-CBN News. Sabi niya, thank you very much, Professor David and Wilson and other people. Thank you very much again to everyone. I'd like to acknowledge also Mr. Ko Beng Som, Secretary General of the Philippine Jinjiang Association of the Philippines and many others. Thank you again to Professor Guido David and to your group, Octa Research Group. Congratulations for your award and congratulations for helping the country. Advance Merry Christmas to everyone. This will be really, I think, a true maligayang Pasko. And the maligaya will be very meaningful to us, hindi lang siya words. Thank you very much and have a good day. Please wear face mask pa rin daw. And I agree, no need for face shield. But yung mga ayaw pa magpabakuna, please, kulitin natin. Thank you very much to everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Keep safe. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Ayun, so mga kaibigan, napakinggan nyo, napanood natin yung ginawang Pandesal Forum, no? Diyan sa Kamuning Bakery, kung saan nga ay sinabi po nitong si Dr. Guido David, no? Ng Octa Research Team, Philo University of the Philippines Professor, na yung kanyang prediction o forecast nitong Year of the Tiger ay start ngayong February, wala na yan. Kasi nga, di ba? At tulad yan, nag-alert level 2 na tayo mula ngayon hanggang 15. So, tuloy-tuloy na sana. Inaasahan po natin ang bawat Pilipino para maging, hayahay na ang buhay ng bawat isa, no? Para makabawi yung ating mga kababayan na makapagtrabaho na, no? Para naman kahit paano meron na silang ibuhay, no, sa kanilang mga pamilya, lalo na yung ihahain sa pagkainan na halos sabihin natin isang taon, mahigit 2 taon na nagtiyaga, no, sa ayuda, nagtiyaga sa kung ano meron, no, na dating ang kinakain nila ay hindi sila sumasala, pero ngayon ay parang natipid sa lahat, no, dahil sa pandemic. At yun nga, at sana nga yung sinabi ni Dr. Guido, no, Guido David, na sana magtuloy-tuloy na nga yan. At sinabi naman niya na wala na yan, no. Actually nga, bumaba na, pababa na, sana magtuloy-tuloy na from alert level 3 naging 2 ngayon, at sana maging alert level 1 at ika nga open na lahat, open sesame na, para pati ang ekonomiya ng ating bansa ay magtuloy-tuloy, bumalik sa dati, no, na sabihin natin yung mga mayayaman, ganun din nung nagkaroon ng pandemic, kung sila merong asset na 50,000 pesos, for example, nung nag-pandemic, ang naging asset nila ay naging 25 na lang. So, pero isabihin, hindi nangangahulugan na nawala na sila at kundi bumaba, no? Hindi naman totally pero yung talagang taong, sabihin natin mahirap, wala na nga, nag-pandemic pa, di lalo nang wala, di ba? Well, mga kaibigan, sa oras na alas 7:45 po ng gabi, Philippine Standard Time, pansamantala po yung magpapaalam muna ako at muli magbabalik bukas sa ating another episode ng programang Tropa. At bukas, meron po tayong bisita na isang mentor, isang business-minded. Bukas, malalaman natin, no? Ito po tungkol sa isang gamot, no, na magagamit ng mga may sakit, etc. At bukod doon ay kikita pa raw. No? Malalaman natin bukas. Abangan natin bukas so yan. At abangan nyo rin. Kung makakapakinig kayo, kung magugustuhan nyo, nasa sa inyo po yun. Kayo na ang nasa sa inyo, katawan nyo yan. Kung bibili kayo, kung gusto nyo sumama, nasa sa inyo. Okay, sa mga kaibigan, bago tayo tuloy magtapos, sabay magpasalamat muna tayo sa ating mga Dabber Cats, no, na tumutok dito sa ating programang Tropa sa Millennial Online TV. Si Mang Jose, yung aking pangkin, ng taga Siniloan, Laguna, maraming salamat. At masarap daw, yung super manok. Kailan kaya ulit ako makakatikim na pangkin? Natikman ko na kasi kakapiraso pa. Sabi nga ni Joshua, sarap okay? At ganyan din si Joel Cabusora Regindin, Rogelio Dagdag Esteban, kay Miss Jackie Lagpo Adahar, si Ma'am Delski Bernadas, at siyempre, si Kagawad Sanidad at Pineda, si Kuyang Romel Martinez. Sabay pagalingin mo yung kamay mo, Kuyang Romel. Kainin mo ngayong gabi, munggo, sitaw, mga isaw. Kung merong inihaw dyan, barbecue yung isaw. Main ka na rin. De, joke lang, Kuya Romel. Ano lang yan? Inuman mo na lang, inuman ng tubig. Tapos siguro ko yung mga vitamin C, yan, mag-take ka. At ganoon din kay Ate Luningning Pahayag. Maraming salamat, Tining, at magandang gabi sa iyo. At syempre yung ating kaagila, si Magas Gakusana. Abay, ito po'y February na. Abay, Kuya, ikaw ba'y kailan ang luwas mo? At para makapag-usap na tayo para sa iyong magiging programa dito sa Millennial Online TV. At ganyan din kay Ma'am Evelyn Limatsuo, no? Magandang gabi, Ma'am, at salamat po sa iyong pagtunghay, no? At sigurado ko nanonood kay Gianni Hiro Tamadachi, arigato, irishaimase. Kita mo, Ma'am, Ma'am Evelyn, marunong ako maghapon, Pag sinabi nga ng Hapong, sa Hapon, ang gwapo, kamukha ko, kita mo. Pag tinabi naman daw ang Hapon, pagka yung pangit, kamukha mo. Okay, so si Ma'am Agatha Sanchez ng Solo Parents. Magandang gabi, salamat Ma'am. At yan, nakita ko na yung iyong page na Solo Parents. May maganda yan. Maraming salamat Ma'am. Sana'y dumami ng mga miyembro. At sabi mo nga na medyo inano ka na nung sinong congressman yun. Hindi maganda pagka ganon. At yan din kay Ma'am Delsky, salamat. At sino pa ba? Baka may nakakalimutan pa ako. Si Ma'am, si Kagawad, Ate Ningning. Wala na. Okay, sa mga kaibigan, bukas abangan nyo yung ating magiging bisita at alamin natin kung paano tayo kikita ron at kung paano natin maididiga sa mga kaibigan natin yung bisa nung sinasabi nilang gamot na mahusero sa katawan lupa. Ako, bukas may bubulong ako, Sir Haji, kung yung gamot na yun ay pwede sa... Basta, bukas na. Okay, mga kaibigan, muli, ako po yung naging kasama ng kakwentuhan ka-jamming, katropa, kabarangay, no? Kadabalgat dito po sa programang Talakayin, Rebisahin, Opinion, Palawakin, Aksyonan, Tropa. Ako po yung lingkod, Rosel Lopez. Magandang gabi po at mapayapang magdamag.
Nais mo bang guminhawa ang iyong pakiramdam? Kung ikaw ay may sipon, ubo, lagnat at iba pang nararamdaman, lalo na ang sakit ng katawan, narito na ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil. Ang Yasmag Magnesium Therapy Oil ay nakatutulong na ibsan ang iyong nararamdaman sa pamamagitan ng pagpahid sa apektadong parte ng katawan, gaya ng noo, balikat, tuhod at kung anuman ang masakit na parte ng iyong katawan. Panoorin ang mga testimonials ng gumamit ng Yasmag.
Yan po, ginagamit niya. Siya po ay isa sa aking mga testimony.
Ako, si Destino Francisco, ay gumagamit ng Yasmag na siyang nakapagpalakad sa akin. Kaya kayo, mga kaibigan ko at kakilala, ay pinapayuhan kong gumamit ng product na ito.
Isa sa ating testimony, ikukwento po niya sa inyo yung kanyang result nung siya ay 1 linggo nang nilalagnat at giniginaw ng hihina.
Hi, ako po si Rina Liliantos, 29 years old, taga Sariaya, Quezon po. Nangyari po sa akin, itong mga nakaraang araw po ay hindi ko po maintindihan yung pakiramdam ko, gawa pong ang sakit po sobra ng likod ko, nilalagnat ako, tapos po ay hindi lang po 1 linggo ang nararamdaman ko. Simula po nung July 30 hanggang itong araw, hanggang nung mga nakaraang araw. Yun lang po, nawala lang po ng dahil sa magnesium.
Paano ginawa mo?
Ang ginawa lang po sa akin ay pinahinaplas po sa akin likod kung saang parte ng katawan ang masakit. Tapos po ay hinilot lang po ako. At hanggang po pagpawisan ako sa pagkahilot na may magnesium. Ayun lang po, sunod-sunod po ang paglagay kung saan banda ang may masakit. At yun nga po, ilang araw lang sa paggamit yun ng magnesium, ako mismo, sarili ko, ramdam ko ang pagbabago sa aking katawan. Dahil po simula nga po nung July 30 hanggang itong itong mga nakaraang araw lang, hindi ako halos makatayo dahil sa sobrang sakit ng aking likod.
Ako po si Leslie. First time ko po mag-try nitong Yasmag Magnesium Therapy. Ang una ko pong naramdaman ang bango niya lang hapin, nakaka-relax ng katawan, and then yung sakit na iniinda ko sa puso, yung sakit-sakit, wala naman ako sakit sa puso, pero yung mga kirot-kirot nawala niya, instant nawala, na tagal ko nang iniinda. And then hindi siya malagkit ipahid.
Mga milenyo, pagod ka na ba galing sa trabaho? At gutom na sa maghabong pagtatrabaho, pero wala kang pagkain sa bahay? Narito na ang sagot, mga katropa, ang super manok lechon. Napapawi sa inyong gutom at siguradong mapapa-analyze ka dahil sa tender juicy na jam mo pa at siguradong malinis at bagong katay buhat sa farm. Kaya super masalasa at pangmasa pa. Ano pa hinihintay nyo, mga katropa? Takbo na sa Super Manok Panteño Siniluan at bumili na. Baka maabusan ka, katropa. Mga millennials, marunong na ba kayong magluto ng mga masasarap at swak sa budget na mga pagkain? Abay, huwag puro lang kayo aksi at ML at puro pagkakalikot lang ng cellphone. Dapat marunong ka rin sa gawain bahay at tulungan ang inyong mga mamsi. Kaya tara na, samahan natin ang kusinera ng bagong milenyo, si Ate J. At tuturuan tayong magluto ng mga masasarap na ulam natin sa ating mga hapagkainan at swak pa sa budget. Ika nga, a delicious food on a proper price. Tara na, mga millennials!
ba ay Unwind Ventures? Tara nang mamangha sa mga tanawin. Ano man ang iyong travel goals? Dadalhin namin kayo. Sa Unwind Ventures at saya. Dito lang sa Wow Biyahe. Kaya wow, di ba?
Abangan dito lang sa Millennial Online TV. Ikaw ba'y nag-iisa? Nalulungkot dahil iniwan at ipinagpalit, niloko ng iyong minamahal. Kung ngayon, i-type sa inyong mga cellphone, Facebook o YouTube man ang Millennial Online TV. Dahil nasa Millennial Online TV na ang online haralista ng bagong milenyo, si Randel Villados.
Naninigas ang aking katawan kapag umikot ng plaka.
At haharanahin kayo ni Randel ng iba't ibang awitin para maibsan ang inyong inip at kalungkutan kahit nasaan man kayo.
Hanggang sa tumanda. Come on! Kung tayo'y matanda na, sana'y di tayo magbago.
At pwede rin kayong makiduet kay Randel tuwing Sabado ng hapon. Tutok na! Tawag na mga milenyo!
Araw-araw ikaw ang gusto kong kasama. Buhay ko'y kumpleto na tuwing nandito ka sa tabi ko o aking giliw.
Barangay, pangunahing unit ng pamahalaan lokal kung saan dito pinag-uusapan ang bawat sinalog ng mga residente ng bawat barangay. Dito rin pinag-uusapan ng mga piling halal na opisyal na barangay ang mga proyekto para sa kanilang barangay. Kumustahin natin ang panunungkulan ni Kapitan dito sa Dalo Barangay sa Millennial Online TV Worldwide, ang katropa ng bawat barangay.
At tinatapos ang ating pagpupulong. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pagdalo at tapos na po ang ating session. Hanggang na po tayo.
Now,
Talakayin, rebisahin, opinyon, palawakin, aksyonan. Kasama si ROCEL Lopez, ang inyong katropa. Dito lang sa Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita. Binaigting, binalakas, ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Mga katropa, ako po si Randel Villados, ang online naranista ng bagong milenyo ng Millennial Online TV na nag-aanyaya sa inyo na makikanta, makisaya at tumutok sa lahat ng programa ng Millennial Online TV. I-type lamang sa inyong Facebook at YouTube ang Millennial Online TV. Nood na mga katropa!
Ako inyong lingkod, ROCEL Lopez, ang inyong katropa, ang inyong kabarangay dito sa Millennial Online TV. Abangan ang ating mga kaganapan dito sa ating bansa at abangan din ang panunungkol ni Kapitan sa ating Dalaw Barangay. Paano nyo kami mapapanood? I-type lamang sa inyong mga cellphone, sa inyong Facebook at YouTube ang Millennial Online TV. Ano pa hinihintay nyo mga katropa? Like, subscribe, at share na. Okay mga katropa?
Mga katropa, ako po si GHAZI Sarip, ang inyong tagapaghatid ng balita sa bagong milenyo na nag-aanyaya sa inyo na tunghayan ng aking mga pag-uulat at tumutok sa lahat ng programa dito sa Millennial Online TV. I-type lamang sa inyong Facebook at YouTube ang Millennial Online TV. Nood na mga katropa!
Inaigting, pinalakas ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katrop. Inaigting, pinalakas ang bagong news online TV ng bagong milenyo. Millennial Online TV, ang katropa mo sa pagbabalita.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas.
Kayang magiging telas ng sinakalan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa mandulupin, di ka pasisigil, sa nagagang tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Ang isang ng matawad mo'y tagumpay na naghihingi, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pamay di maghihingi. Luman ang araw ng walang pansin ka, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mga akin, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Sa lahat ng bumubuo ng Millennial Online TV at sa lahat po ng sumusuporta, maraming salamat po. Millennial Online TV is now signing off.